I have one. Hey, good morning. I'm doing good. Good to see you. Excuse me.
Hey, nice to see you. Oh, yeah. I need to stand up anyway. I'm like, I'm not even awake. I'm just making it.
Thank you so much for your help. I appreciate it.
I'm actually glad you reached out. 'Cause I was like, I forgot I even have one on here. And then we all started figuring out we have all done different ones. And he was like, oh, I figured you guys were Brazil 16. You're not disappointed. We're so used to you doing it. We forget. Well, we have anything to do with it right now. So since everyone else is off the agenda, I was like, yeah, we can do that. I almost forgot. He's like, probably have to remember surgery. So I'm like,
Yeah, help me out, bud.
things up like that. They're like, all right, things are actually gonna make it.
Good, and I just work with them. Yes.
It's 9 o'clock. We'll be getting started in just a moment once everyone's confirmed that we have access.
Absolutely.
I could tell they had already been come forward.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Good to see you too. Thank you so much. A little bit different. Yes, well.
You good? You good? Tosh, you good? You good? You good?
I wanted to show today.
I'm saying, yeah, it's you down here.
Well, good morning.
Morning.
For the record, my name is Freddie Scott. I'm only the acting chair for this session in lieu of our chair, Matthew Sutherland, who's away. But the October 15th, 2024 meeting of the Charter Authorizing Panel is called to order. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Department of Education and ask that you please silence all of your electronic devices. The goal is to facilitate a fair and responsible hearing, so therefore, I ask that each person speaking please state your name and title for the record. I ask that you continue to speak clearly into the microphone throughout your presentation for the benefit of the panel, this audience, and the viewing audience as well. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded, and a transcript of the meeting will be posted on the DESI website. Good morning, everyone. Good morning to our panel members. We'll have a consent agenda before us today. If there are no questions, then I'll entertain a motion to pass the consent agenda. To a second?
Second.
It was moved by Ms. Newton, second by Mr. Davis, to pass the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Motion passes. Ms. Haywood, from our legal department. Thank you for representing.
Good morning.
That works with the Department of Education.
It's been a while since I've been down here, so I don't think I have met most of you. The last time I presented here was last year. But thankfully, thanks to Mr. Reynolds, I was reminded that we do tell you guys the procedures every time. And so I am just going to go through those today with you just as a brief reminder for everyone here. Whenever we get to our action agenda, of course, any party that is presenting gets 20 minutes to present their side. The opposing party also gets 20 minutes. And then there is 5 minutes for any arguments in opposition to the application, any charter school application. And of course, any parties will need to be sworn in by the chair. And I think that is the gist of our procedures today. Does anyone have any questions?
No
All right,
questions?
thank you.
Thank you.
Then I know next we are presenting, I think, is it the IOTA application? Or,
No problem, yes. And we'll
Okay.
have Ms. Summons,
okay, I'll go back.
Ms. Summons.
Testing 1, 2. We're going to swap mics and see if this helps. Testing 1, 2, 1, 2. You just have to get really, really close.
Good morning, Dory Summons, Charter Office. The IOTA Leadership Academy has applied to establish 2 open enrollment charter schools beginning in the 25-26 school year. The charter will follow a traditional educational model, and we do have representatives from IOTA Leadership here with us this morning.
Thank you. With those that are representing IOTA Leadership Academy, please stand. I'd like to swear you in. And raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony or statement that you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. You now have an opportunity to present.
Good morning. My name is Jacquel Rogers. I am the Executive Director of IOTA Community Schools in Memphis, Tennessee. We are a charter management organization formerly known as Green Dot Public Schools. For the past 10 years, we have done transformation work in Memphis, Tennessee. After 10 years of being a part of a national organization, we decided after 10 years to become a more local organization after the national organization dissolved. So we became IOTA Community Schools in July, and we just wanted to continue doing the work that we have been doing in Memphis with our 4 schools. We operate Wooddale Middle School, Kirby Middle School, Hillcrest High School, and Bluff City High School. Our goal in Memphis is to build relationships, to operate in accountability, to move with determination, with driving to maintain persistence, focus, and purposefulness, and to build justice and equity in our schools. Next slide. So, the mission of IOTA Community Schools is to create access to comprehensive opportunities as we embrace each student.
I'm sorry, can I stop you just one
Yes.
second? Do we not have the slides? Okay. If you
Okay.
just give us a
Okay.
moment.
Oh, okay. Oh, there's, oh, okay. Okay. All right. So meet our team. Thank you. I'm not always technologically savvy. All right, again, I am Jacqueline Rogers, the Executive Director. Christina Austin is our Chief Innovation Officer. Chad Everett is our Chief Operations Officer. Daniel Peñaranda is our Chief Financial Officer, and Deidre Ussery is our Chief of Academic Advancement. Our board chair is Ametris Allen. She is employed by Allsack St. Jude. Larry Neal Jr. by Simmons Bank. Pam Egwekwe is with Cold Crew. Pedro Velasquez is with LifeDoc Health. Tamika Young is with Nike, and Terrell Munger is a pastor in Memphis. We have also engaged with members of the Arkansas Little Rock community who are interested in joining our board. One who is already engaged with Little Rock schools and operates a barbering college here in Little Rock, and another member of the Arkansas community who is an Arkansas lawyer. So we are already engaged and invested in finding members of the Arkansas community who are willing to join our board if we are granted a charter here. Our agenda today is to talk to you about our mission, vision, impact, and results, what we would like to do here as IOTA in Arkansas, and to answer any questions and provide answers. Our vision at IOTA Community Schools is to relentlessly pursue excellence, guided by fostering relationships, accountability, determination, and justice. Our mission at IOTA Community Schools is creating access to comprehensive opportunities as we embrace each student and prepare them for life through innovative and transformative academics while building sustainable pathways to economic growth. One of the things that we have been able to do over the past 10 years at IOTA as Green Dot Public Schools, but now IOTA Community Schools, is to really prepare students, especially to enter the workforce, to leave school prepared to go to college, to be leaders in their communities, and to thrive. I will turn it over now to Chad Everett, who is our Chief COO, and he is going to talk to you about the IOTA community.
Good morning, I'm Chad Everett. I'm the Chief Operations Officer for IOTA Community Schools. I want to talk to you for just a few moments about who we serve and a little bit about how we serve them. And so our current student demographics are here for me on the left-hand side of this slide. The populations that we serve are predominantly students of color, Black and brown students from historically under-resourced communities. And I want to be careful to say under-resourced because we have to recognize that the circumstances that led to those communities becoming transformational is not because of deficits of those in the community, but the resources that they have been provided over time. On the left-hand side, though, I want to draw your attention to the last two sort of bullets there. 70% of our students enter reading below grade level in reading and math. And so in IOTA Community Schools, for us, we don't believe in a deficit-centered approach. Whether you enter reading at grade level or below grade level, what are the strengths that you bring through the door? And we believe in meeting students where they currently are to put them on a pathway to proficiency. We recognize, though, because we work in transformational communities, communities that are ever evolving, we have a responsibility, and COVID forever changed the world. We like to say that long COVID does not just exist in the body, it exists in the community outside the body and around the school. And so our world-class free after-school program, over 400 students over the last 2 years have benefited from tutoring from our free after-school program. We've had over 206 students certified through our career and technical education programs. We're believers that students should leave school with the skill sets and the academic prerequisites that they need for whatever it is that they intend to do in life. We like to say that every student may not be college bound, but the education that they received while they were with us should not make that determination for them. 78,000 free meals served through our after-school enrichment program. It is difficult to fill the head before the body is full, and our students, when they enter our after-school program areas, are always excited to have that meal. Again, we serve in transformational communities that are historically under-resourced. Those school lunches, those school breakfasts, those after-school snacks and meals are oftentimes, for our students, maybe the only one that they receive that day. And so we take seriously that responsibility to ensure that they have the supports, not just academic, but others they need to succeed. Over $2 million in post-secondary scholarships for school year 23-24. Through one of our giving programs at the end of the year, we were able to award $24,000 for students. We believe in eliminating barriers, and so that was for the things that students often don't think about you need when you're going to college: bed sheets, things to do laundry, and so we're able to award scholarships just for that. And then we believe in community service. Whether you be the most affluent student, whether you be the most academically successful, or at the opposite end of the spectrum, you have the ability to serve and give. There's over 9,600 community service hours were completed by the graduating class of 2024. Expanding our reach to elevate every student. So we begin with establishing a solid academic foundation. So high quality instructional materials, rigorous, and we say data driven. Again, what you do not measure does not matter. And so we believe in inspecting what we expect, and the things that we put in front of students and in front of teachers, they should deliver results. Wraparound services, and so if you were to visit our schools, you would see that students have regular access to academic counselors, social workers who not only support students, but also their families, health screenings through our partnership with LifeDoc, well, not just students coming in for early identification during athletic physicals or during just general physicals, but also families coming in. We recognize that for many of the families that we serve, if we know are students of history, the relationship between those communities and the medical community has not always been the strongest, and so we're often the conduit or that partnership that families look to, trusted, to get them the resources they need. And then parent resource rooms, where families can come in and get support with resumes, food assistance through our partnership with the Mid-South Food Bank. Post-secondary readiness, so again, those college preparation courses and certifications, so students leave school ready to enter the workforce if they choose, and be able to support themselves and families, and then community development. When we say all, we mean each. And I say that because we are believers that every single student who sits at a desk in front of us is not just a number, it's not just a data point, that is a life that may be the one that saves ours one day, or the one that continues to replicate the things that we provided for them. So we do believe that every student deserves access to a high quality education. And I want to pause here because this is the one that I know this leadership team feels deeply in our bones. Your zip code should not determine your overall success in life or what you're able to achieve to. Title I may tell me a little bit about the socioeconomics of your community, but it does not tell me how you learn or how capable you are of learning. We believe that students, again, when they leave school, should be prepared for post-secondary success, whatever that means for them, whether you be going into the military, the workforce, on to college, taking a gap year. We believe that students should know what's your personalized plan for you, and even if that doesn't look like what you think it ought to look like when you're coming out and it changes, that's fine. It's just part of your journey. Our approach to education, our K-12 learning approach. We don't believe in just doing things because we say they're good and we say that they work for us. And so this is grounded in the work of Michael Fullen in the book, Putting Faces on the Data. Again, students are not just data points for that student that's sitting in front of me. If they're performing in math class, or they're in my intervention group, or they are students who receive special education support, that's not a data point, that is a face, that is a life, that is someone that deserves the absolute best that we have each and every day. And so inside that text, it gives 14, we added 15 parameters that are essential for creating a structured, I want to be paused here, equitable and effective. We don't believe in the soft bigotry of lowered expectations. Again, we meet students where they currently are, but put them on a pathway to proficiency that supports growth and success. For us, we believe in a layered rollout that makes it sustainable and bite-sized for teachers, for students, for families, for the leaders on our campuses. And so for SY 25-26, here's what that layered rollout would look like, and I want to focus just there. Shared beliefs and understandings, the principal serving as the lead learner on their campus, a case management approach. So for us, what that means is every student, as opposed to having a data wall where you're just going in, where's this number, where's this data point moving? This is an individual case. This is a student, and what does that student need to be successful? Family and community involvement. Most of us have been in this work long enough, and they'll permit me to say I'm from Mississippi and I can be a touch country at times, and I tell them I believe that school is still the hub of the community, and the communities in which we serve, that is their expectation. And so they may call us because they need washing powder. They may call us because their baby's going to college and they need help figuring out a FAFSA application, Or it may be like the parent who told me, well, Mr. Everett, you told me that y'all were here for us, not just my baby, so can I come sit in your office? I said, as long as you don't mind me answering emails, you can come get this free therapy every morning when you want to. And she did. But again, when we talk about community involvement, not just going out into the community, but ensuring that when families come into the building, they can get to a principal. Every member of this leadership team walks the hallways of the schools in which we lead. And so you can stop our executive director, you can stop me, and they will. And I said, Mr. Everett, now let me tell you about the math teacher. Whatever it is that they need, where they know we're accessible and responsive to what they need. And then shared responsibility and accountability. There can be no growth where there is not accountability, and there can be no accountability where there is not truth. And as an organization, we have always operated with our authorizers in a manner in which we are guided by truth in our data, in our approach. And if it means there are things we need to adjust, we have always been very honest about that. We will do so in this presentation today with any questions that you have. Again, we're here to do the work. We don't believe that we have been perfect. We don't ever believe that we will be perfect. But one of our core values is determination, and we believe that we will keep our head down until the work is done. I will turn things over now to our Chief of Innovation, Ms. Christina Austin.
Good morning, Christina Austin, Chief Innovation Officer. Looking kind of transitioning over to curriculum and the academic side of things. For our elementary school curriculum, we do plan on an ELA using foundations, geodes, and wit and wisdom. In math, envision math, and in science, amplify science. For the middle schools, pretty similar outside of ELA. So for ELA in middle schools, My Perspectives by Savas, and then Envision Math, and then Amplify Science for science. In terms of the LEARNS Act, we do plan at ILA to abide by all parts of the Arkansas LEARNS Act, but for the purposes of today, we're going to talk about the literacy component. For the literacy component in academics, we do plan to ensure that all students have high quality literacy instruction in alignment with the LEARNS Act by having high quality instructional materials that are aligned to the science of reading, making sure that all of our teachers are trained on that science of reading. Also ensuring that all students have access to intervention, and through that using Atlas as the primary screener for the lower grade levels, and then using iReady as the screener for upper grade levels. Transitioning into results. So on this first slide, what you'll see is our annual summative success rate. So that is the end of year assessment that our students take in their core content areas. What you'll notice here is in this last school year, Bluff City really had an increase. We do believe that that is part of Kirby Middle School and Wooddale Middle School both feed into Bluff City. And so the work that we've been doing, the changes that we've made in our academic programs, we do see that the outcomes are starting to show through, specifically, like I said, at Bluff City High School in the 2024 school year. This slide is our middle school TVAS, and what that is in Tennessee is our growth metric. And so in Tennessee, to get a TVAS score, you get a score between a 1 and 5, depending on your growth. So what this slide does is compares us to the neighborhood schools that we serve. And so what you'll see here is the literacy and numeracy composite for this last school year. Our two schools, Kirby Middle School, scored a 3 in growth, and Wooddale a 5, and then the neighboring schools, you see the results there, mostly 1s and then the 1-2. iReady reading. So as I mentioned earlier, we do give the iReady also, and so what this slide shows is the number of students or percentage of students that are on grade level, on or above grade level, that is. The first two yellow columns will show the fall and spring from the 2022-23 school year. And then in the purple, you will see 23-24 school year, the growth in reading from beginning of year assessment to the end of year assessment. So this is for iReady reading. I'll give you a minute. And then the same for math. So this is the percent of students scoring on or above grade level in math from the 22-23 fall test to the spring. And then the same in purple from 23-24. So again, back to what was said earlier, and that our students come in 70% coming into middle school behind grade level in both reading and math, and so seeing that growth over the course of a year in our students that are on grade level. This is more of our high school's ready graduate, similar to some of the components of the learns in the readiness component. So what you'll see here is over time, our number of students, or increase in number of students, percentage of students that actually is, that are considered ready grad in the state of Tennessee. So Bluff City this past year had an increase of 37% of students that were considered ready grad, and Hillcrest High School an increase of 16% for that ready graduate rate as well. And I'm now going to turn it over to Daniel Peñaranda for this part.
Now we get to the fun part, finance. I know that's what everyone was waiting for here. My name is Dan Peñaranda. I'm the CFO of Iota Community Schools. We're incredibly excited about the opportunity to move into Little Rock. Every day in Memphis, 2,000 students and their families choose us. And we hope to have the opportunity to convince students here that we can provide them with a quality education and an opportunity they might not have otherwise. But I'm really here to talk today about facilities and about the finances of the organization and ILA. We have identified a site here in Southwest Little Rock that we are excited to be able to transform into an innovative campus for students here in Little Rock. This will be a multi-phase build-out with an initial occupancy phase of about 30,000 square feet for the initial 400 students moving into the building. As we continue on over the course of the next 18 months, the build-out will continue until we have a little under 100,000 square feet of occupiable space that is cutting edge and state-of-the-art for our students here in Southwest Memphis. They deserve an incredible place to learn, and being able to provide them with this multi-stage, beautiful campus for the build-out is something we're excited about doing. With our partners here in Memphis and the broker we have engaged, we have identified a list of sites, one which we provided in the application, that we are excited about taking this opportunity as the next step forward with. As we spoke about, Iota has 10 years of operational success in Memphis with 9 years of unqualified, no findings independent audit reports, greater than 100 days cash on hand, a debt service coverage ratio consistently of over 3, and less than $4 million of long-term debt. We are a proven, established company in the state of Tennessee that will take those same steps to be successful and take the financial strength of our organization here to Little Rock as well. What we always try to focus with on our financial obligation for our students is to keep the resources as close as possible to the classroom. What this means is that all decision making around our finances is how do we make sure we're properly impacting our students first, and then how do we make sure that we right size our overall resources to be effectively serving those students. So in year one, we do expect to enroll 400 students, and that is a mixture of K1 and 6, with a 1-grade expansion each year for both the ILA academies after that, enrolling to the full 1,000 students after year 3. Enrolling 100 students after year 3 until we reach the full 1,000 students. The great thing about this model and having this combined campus within the K-8 Academy is the economies of scale we realize within this structure, which will give us a positive cash flow every year. Oh, I feel like I'm missing a slide, so I'm just gonna talk through it. We provided you all with the financials, and what you'll see is in year 1 through 3 of our financials, we do have a positive net income at each one of the schools, which provides us with the opportunity to continue to reinvest back in classrooms. The strength of the financial strength of the Iota organization will help to buoy this initial investment within Little Rock and provide us with the resources we need to be successful here. But nonetheless, the long-term strength of the organization and of ILA here in Little Rock will be buoyed based upon our successes and having a positive net income every year in each one of our schools. Now, I know that enrollment is tied to revenue, and that always is a question when starting a new charter school. We have a history of running a very positive contingency budget and have had a positive net income in all of our entities for the last 5 years. In doing this, like I said, we start as far away from the classroom as possible and make those cuts at the central level. Chad and I, and probably everyone on this board, have painted a wall I've changed the ceiling tile because that's what's needed in our building. We make sure that we have and support our classrooms as much as possible. We are excited and we appreciate your time here. I think that's our time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Just want to confirm that there's no public comments or opponents. All right. We hear questions from the panel. Dr. Moore?
So first, thank you so much for your presentation. It very much resonated with me, especially your description of the importance of the community and underserved communities having access to quality education. As a former math educator and advocate for K-12 STEM education, it touched my heart, everything that you said, so thank you for that. I do have a few questions about your application. Student success plans are something required in legislation even prior to LEARNs, and then it's additionally mentioned in LEARNs, and I wasn't noticing that called out specifically in the application. Can you speak to how students, they're required by the end of 8th grade? Some schools do them sooner. Do y'all know anything about the student success plan for your school?
Yes, ma'am, thank you. And we have something similar in Tennessee. That work is primarily handled by academic counselors. Again, with us having social workers and academic counselors, it frees them up to sort of do some of their work, to look at students' high school graduation pathways, the courses that they're going to need for whatever that is that they're intending to do after high school, and then also their post-secondary plan. And again, not just for special education students, but also for those gen ed students, like what is their course sequence going to be in high school, what are their elective options going to be that are going to put them on the pathway for what they need for whatever their post-secondary plans are as well. Okay,
and that leads to my next question. I noticed that you requested a waiver for counseling and are requesting a 600-to-1 ratio, and you note that 451 that we have is already not that great. So, and I know you have external people coming in, but could you speak a little more to that? Because that's a real concerning number, 600-to-1.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. We do plan to abide by the comprehensive school counseling plan. The waiver that we were seeking to request was just for the licensure component, and so in Tennessee what we've found, and definitely would go by the 2-counselor ratio at that point, but is that a social worker for the wraparound services in the communities we serve. So we were wanting to try to waive the licensure component, but not actually the number, but yes with the license. And so even if not, though, if that was something that we did not need to waive, we were willing to do it. It's just we found it successful with social workers and counselors in the combination of both.
Okay, so still following the comprehensive plan then?
Right.
Okay.
Within the financial model, we have 1 social worker and 1 counselor.
Excuse me. Just for the record, for our transcript, if you could
Yes,
give
sir. Sorry
your
about that.
name and
Yes, sir. In the financial model, we have 1 social worker
your name-
and 1 counselor.
name
Daniel
and title.
Pinaranda, CFO. Yes, sir. 1 social worker and 1 counselor. If we did not receive that waiver, we would just transform that social worker into a counselor. We've just found in our 10 years that having a dedicated social worker on each campus serves the community and our needs much better.
All right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Sorry about that.
I have a couple additional. Do you want me to ask them now or? Okay. All right. A master schedule, and I may be overlooking that. I saw the number of minutes of courses, but I didn't see a master schedule. Do y'all have a master schedule sample plan yet?
So it may have been
just as a reminder,
Chad Everett.
just for, because on the transcript, we need to know who's speaking, your
Yes, sir.
title.
I got you. Thank you. Chad Everett, Chief Operations Officer. And so we did go off number of minutes there, and one of the things if approved for a K-1 and a middle school, we recognize there are differences in what that master schedule would look like for those. We do have with us, and we can provide to this panel in just a few minutes if we need to. We apologize it was left out of the packet for what our tentative master schedule would look like.
Okay.
Those 2 years, but we do have a tentative master schedule and have done that work, especially in middle schools, for how to execute that 6-period bell schedule, but then also in a K and 1, ensure that that literacy, that math block, and those pull-out services are truly able to be inclusive for students, and that during that Tier 1 instruction where they're teaching those essential standards, that those students are in that class, and sort of a shift where that intervention time is happening where those non-essential standards are not being taught, or if their students are being pulled, it would be like the last 10 minutes of a course when non-essential standards are being taught in maybe the first 5 of the next class. Yes, ma'am, we can provide that to the panel.
Okay. And if I overlooked it, I'm sorry, I saw the minute allocation. Did you all notice a master schedule sample? Okay, all right, so
Yes,
that would
ma'am,
be
we
great to
apologize. We'll
see.
get that taken care of. Yes,
And
ma'am.
I was especially curious if Algebra 1 would be taught in 8th grade as an option.
Yes, ma'am. You want to speak?
Christina Austin, Chief Innovation Officer. Yes, it would be offered in the 8th grade block in order for students to gain credit in 9th grade.
Okay, thank you. And along those same lines about STEM, since math being STEM, I applaud the opportunity for 6th graders to have special classes focused on STEM, but it did mention 50 6th graders. So I was wondering how those 6th graders would be selected and what was the rationale for limiting it to the number of students who could participate.
So in past, the rationale for the number of students has really been based upon test scores and student interest. And so because not all students were interested in the STEM pathway, some of them wanted to do arts or other electives, trying to make sure that we do give opportunity for student choice. But that could expand depending on whether or not they their scores showed or the interest was there.
Okay, so what type of scores would they have to be able to be part of the STEM?
So as long as from their previous years that they are in the approaching into being or mastery, I don't know the exact language, but approaching or on track mastered, then they are eligible for the STEM program. I'm not saying it exits anyone below out. It's just saying that those are the ones that we find to be most successful in the program.
Okay, so it's not only for advanced students, as
No,
long
ma'am.
as they're performing at grade level?
Correct.
Okay, all right, that's helpful. And then my last question, thank you all for giving me the time to ask all this question. Noticed on the board, and you spoke to some of the folks on the board, your bylaws allow 3 to 25, which seemed like a pretty broad range. So what's the sweet spot there, and do you have a plan?
Everybody's a little taller than me. I'm Jacquel Rogers, Executive Director. So the sweet spot for us really is 10 board members. We currently have 7. So, well, we have 7 with Matt Theory. So we have 7 board members currently. 10 is really the sweet spot for us. So we would like to add 3, possibly in Arkansas, to our current board. And so we've never had a 25-member board, but we would like 10 is a good number for us.
That's all my questions at this time.
I'd like to build upon that last question
Yes.
in regards to the board.
Okay.
I understand 10 is a sweet spot.
Mm-hmm.
I believe ideally, best practice is you want to have an odd number
Okay.
so that your chair
Quorum.
/ president can break a vote.
Okay, well, thank you.
Break a tie.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you
So
for
that
that.
would be one thing. And while we added on the board, there's an existing 7-member board.
Mm-hmm.
Could you step through the skill sets of what that existing board looks like now?
Absolutely.
The idea is that ultimately, if your responsibility is to hold a superintendent, a person responsible for academics,
Yes.
for finances, for operations, what does the skill set look like on the existing board?
And we have committees. So Pamela Gwekwe, well, let me start with, so I can keep my, Ametris Allen is with Allsec St. Jude. She's community engagement, and she works with our development team, which does fundraising. We have Pamela Ogwekwe. She's with Code Crew, but she also has an education background. So she's K-12 she's education, and she does our education committee. We have Pedro Velasquez. He's in healthcare, but he kind of does healthcare and finances. Matt Theory has been on our board for a while, and he does finances as well. Larry Neal, I almost said McNeil. Larry Neal is VP of Commercial Banking with Simmons Bank, and so he is finances. And Terrell Munger is a pastor of One Accord Ministries in Memphis, and so he's community engagement. And then we have Tamika Young. She's human resources with Nike. And so she works with us with human resources, human capital. And I believe we have one person that I'm forgetting. Okay, so I think I went through. And so ideally, we are seeking an attorney for our board because we always want to have someone on the board with legal knowledge, and then just other people with different skill sets to support and help us uplift community engagement is always a particular interest for us, and then someone else with K-12 background.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel Pennerenda, CFO. If I may just add that a little to that, what we want to be very cognizant of is that on our board we have a voice for Little Rock and for Arkansas that represents the interest of students and families in this community. And so our tentative plan, and this has been discussed by our board, is to have the seat makeup of the board mimic the seat makeup of our students. So as the enrollment increases within Arkansas, the board makeup increases for Arkansas seats. So that voice is there, and that voice is championed on that board in the same way that we are providing those services to those students.
All right, thank you.
Can I add one more? Just kind of also, we don't have a parent, Jockwell Rogers, executive director. We do not have a parent representative on the board because we have a parent, what we call SAC in our schools. And so they are our parent voice in the organization. And so they actually communicate through to our board. And so that is how we have parent representation in the organization.
Thank you. Ms. Newman.
And I think, and I apologize if this whole, what I have to say is muddled. We've never had someone to come before this panel and say, you know, we're going to do a halfway job. I'd like, and this speaks to, you know, every application talks about how they're going to improve the situation or circumstances. And I personally would like to start looking at an opportunity to review some data, to say this is what we've done so far, and this is what we are capable of doing, and this is proven. So we were here, now we're there with this population. So, you know, I don't know, like I say, it's muddled. It's not, but we expected everyone that comes before the panel has a desire and has the rhetoric that goes with that. But at the end of the day, what do families say? What do communities say? What do statistics say, whether they're educational, whether they're Department of Corrections, or whether they're, you know, wellness and health and mental health? So what do the communities, how is that, how can we have that reflected so that we can know not only, and not to say that school progress and in terms of growth is not important, but at the same time, we're looking at communities and individuals and systems and futures. And I just like to sometimes, especially with a charter that has been in existence, like this particular one, to say these are the things that we impacted in this community. Before we come to you, this is what we've done, and it suggests, and so it's suggested or anticipated that with the same population, you know, you've got the same structure in terms of wraparound and these after school and tutoring, and I don't know if anyone would come before us that wouldn't have that, and not speaking directly to your charter, but just generally speaking from my background, how do communities change? How do you reflect? A preacher said, well, I brought more souls to Christ. And maybe this would be, not only did we have more kids going to college or graduating, but we, as a result of what we've done and the impact that we've made, because it's all systemic, that we've got less children reporting in juvenile court, or we have less people, crime is down as a result of a systems. And I think it's a responsibility, maybe not, of applicants to say, if we've existed before, and if we're expecting to go into a new area with similar demographics. These are the things that we've impacted. And like I say, I'm not speaking, that's the reason I'm looking at the chair, not speaking directly to you, but over and over, we hear very well-written and very well-presented proposals. And again, we all have a responsibility to the students and the citizens, especially us, that we make sure that we vet things that not only does education change, because education is designed, I think, to change society, change systems, and change ways of life. So I would like to be able to say, well, you know, what's the data? You know, where you come from, what have you done? And not only with educational attainment, but those things that are ancillary, maybe not ancillary, maybe critically important to the impact. So that's the social worker side of me that, you know, I hear, and I can't dissect it as in terms of what the curriculum should be or what, you know, Mr. Baldwin and I share those same concerns, and we talk about it often. I don't assume that he, you know, but we talk about what then. He's a banker. So how does this approach change the underbanked? You know, the things that are not necessarily feel good, you know, the educational.
Yes,
how does the community change? How does your IOTA change communities? Because you're suggesting you're going into a community, and clearly there are charters there, and clearly there are systems there. What is different? And I don't mean to ask you that question now, but just theoretically, what's different? What else will happen as a result of it? And so if science grades don't go up, we can show that there's an interest in different things that are related to, you know, to the environment or to horticulture or things like that. So I don't know that I'm asking for an answer, just I'm rambling.
So I think it's a whole lot, and I get you. I'm a little bit of a rambler too, so I have to kind of rein myself in. And Jacquel Rogers, Executive Director, and so I think Chad and I will work together. But I have to say, first, I am a native Memphian, and like I think I'm the one Memphian. And so when this organization first came, I've been in education. This is my 27th year in education, and I knew all of these schools that we currently operate. I taught at Kirby Middle, and when I taught at Kirby Middle, it was a different school than when we engaged with Kirby Middle. And so I was invested. I live in the community where two of our schools are. I live in Whitehaven. And so it wasn't just for me that I wanted a job. I wanted to see something different than the local district had been providing for our students. And so I went to work at Fairleigh High School, which was the school that I had been assigned to. I lived in that neighborhood that long. And so I loved what was brought to these students who had never gotten that opportunity to go to college. Many of our students don't see colleges. They don't have people in their family who'd gone to college. I've had an opportunity in a neighborhood that people don't get. And I identify with our students because I am our students. I just I had some different access and some different opportunities. And so that is what IOTA is: innovation, opportunity, transformation, access. And so one of the things we were able to do in this organization was partner with one of our high schools that the district wanted to close. It was the absolute lowest performing high school in the state of Tennessee. It had a negative TVAS. And so
Which school is that?
That was Hillcrest High
Okay.
School. And so they wanted to close it. And we decided to partner with that school. And so we have come in to that school and made a positive difference at that school. Can I say that it is the best school in Memphis? I can't, but what I can say is we have sent students to college. We have provided students the opportunity to have scholarships. We provide, like we said last year, we had $2 million in college scholarships. We have taken students, we have what we call Every Child Goes to College, where we shut the school down, we put every one of our students on a bus, and we take them to a college campus. We have children who didn't even know that bells didn't ring at a college. They didn't know that you didn't have to wear a uniform to a college. And so we take them, we provide that opportunity and that access to them. They get to see that. We have children at our schools who get ACT, all of our students get ACT prep. There are students in Memphis who don't get that because they don't go to one of those schools because they don't feel like they're going to go to college. We make the assumption that every single one of our students will go to college. They may be like me. When I graduated from one of the best high schools in Memphis, I didn't go to college because I wasn't the highest performing. No one cared whether I went to college or not. I wasn't provided that access. And so I was prepared enough to go, but I didn't go right away because life was happening. But we make the assumption that all of our students are going to go. And so we provide them the access, the academic opportunity to be prepared that whether they go in August after they graduate or they go August 3 years after they graduate, we want them to be prepared enough to go. And so that is the opportunity that we have provided. We have created a pipeline for students to receive certifications. What you will see, this leadership team right here took over 3 years ago. You will see a shift in our data. You will see a change in the ways that we have operated. We did not have CTE 3 years ago because the leadership team prior to us did not believe in that. But we knew that in order for our students in the communities we serve to thrive, they had to have other ways to make a living for themselves and for their families. And so what we did was shift. And so we now provide CTE opportunities for our students. And so the reason why our college and career readiness numbers went up and increased so much is because we built that in at all of our middle schools and our high schools. And so now our students receive certifications that they otherwise did not get before when they were coming to us. There are so many ways that we provide opportunities. We built a partnership with the Mid-South Food Bank. So now our families can come to us if they need food. We have healthcare centers where not just our students can come and get health care, our families can come and get health care in our schools. And so there is education not just for our children, because what we believe, the healthcare organization that we partner with received funding because for everyone that they've provided health care, they've created $2 of economic growth in the community.
That's
so
right.
Everything that we do with the mindset that we're creating economic opportunity.
Just a quick pause, if
Yes.
so. First of all, it's a lot to unpack,
Yes.
and I appreciate Ms. Newton's comments. I think part of what she's speaking to is we have applications, we have your responses. At the end of the day, what's the impact or the value add that you're bringing to the community?
Right.
And I think you're speaking to a lot to that in Memphis, but I believe your experience in Memphis, what you just expressed, is one thing dealing with graduations. Your application, your interest here is Southwest Little Rock and essentially K through 8. So if you could, even when it comes to student success plans, share how does that really logistically occur, who's involved, et cetera, and knowing that at the end of the day, for those students who graduate from you, 8th grade, and go into high school,
Right.
what kind of value add that experience
Well,
is
one of the
providing?
things I've noticed is the need for that K-5 foundational support. And so one of what we hope to bring is an opportunity to provide greater support for the gap that there seems to be in the elementary sector that you have here. We looked at the elementary schools in that southwest Little Rock area who are not maybe adequately serving your underserved academically students. And so that is what we have thrived. We have thrived at providing services to the academically underserved. And so our populations look very much like the populations you serve in Southwest Little Rock. And so that is what we would like to do in the K-5 sector. We have, we understand that literacy is extremely important. And so by building that K-5 structure and really bringing in strong literacy programming, that is the pipeline to really building stronger middle schools and stronger high schools.
Again, Chad Everett, Chief Operations Officer. Again, and they know I'm a touch country at times, and I told them, you know, the potential to expand into Arkansas reminds me of some of my early roots in education, where I went to school and where I started my career. So when you talk about the impact for a community as a whole, and all of us, whether in Memphis, where we came from, some of us small town Tennessee, the school is truly the hub of the community, and we recognize the role and the ways in which families look at the schools for service and the impact that it makes. So one concrete metric, the things that we measure. So the number of families also served by the food giveaway that happens at the church that is right behind us, and the partnership that we have with the pastor, or she's not the pastor of that church, she owns the building. And so each month, where she gets a significant donation from Walmart of food items, and our students, as part of their community service hours, go over and help participate in that food distribution, but not only the students in our schools, but the entire community. When you think about how do outcomes change in the community, we did just have one school go through the reauthorization process in the state of Tennessee with our local authorizer, and then through the appeals process with the State Board of Education. That meeting, the agenda is up, and we've seen the recommendation of the executive director of the Charter Commission, and it is to reverse this decision of the local Board of Education.
Can you say more about that for me, please?
Yes, sir. So we operate Wooddale Middle School. Wooddale Middle School is in the Parkway Village community, and the school and the student population looks like those of West Little Rock and all of those others that we've served. Every 10 years there, of course, you go up for charter reauthorization. You begin with the process to apply to your local authorizer, and then depending on how that goes, and you would apply to the state board, which is the Tennessee Public Charter Commission, and they handle all appeals. So we just are finishing up that process for Wooddale Middle School. Wooddale Middle School is one of the schools that we operated through our partnership with the Achievement School District. The goal of the Achievement School District was to move schools from the bottom 5% of those in the state out of that category of being designated a priority school. We are the last authorizer in the Achievement School District, and we achieved that goal for Wooddale Middle School, was removed from the state's priority list. Had 2 years of a TVOS level 5, which would be that highest level of growth for students. And so to your point, Ms. Newton, no one has ever stood before you and said, you know, that we can't do the job, but we're also a group that's not gonna stand before you and make promises, as I like to say, sell you sunshine and rainbows. This is systems work. This is deep work, because before you can transform a community, first you've got to understand that community, and you've got to build trust within that community. It's one of the reasons that one of the first 2 folks that we went to engage potentially around being board members were those who understood the community in which we want to serve, that had trust within that community, that had already engaged the students within the schools there. And so back to Wooddale Middle School. And so initially our local authorizer, Memphis Shelby County Schools, did not authorize the school. We, 2 weeks ago, had the appeal hearing for that, and we had to walk through those exact metrics that you speak to, Ms. Newton, both academic proficiency data, growth data, but then also what do families say? How does this compare to leaving this building or allowing this building to return to the local school district? The slide that we shared that was the comparative data for the middle schools there, those were the schools that those students would have ended up in if they were not in a school not operated by Iota Community Schools. They would get to attend an F school without social work services, where they may not have access to a device in every classroom, may not have those mental health supports, and so then they become, tragically, in the communities in which we serve, the stories that are on at 5, 6, and 10. And so our families, and we have the slide deck for that, it's not publicly posted there, but we can provide it to you all, that says, like, here's what our families say. Each year or each semester, we provide a parent and family survey. So not just how's my baby performing, but do you answer the phone when I call? Do I feel welcomed when I come into your front office? One of the things that we in our schools believe in is not just having a bilingual staff member on campus somewhere, but that person is in the front office. And so when families come in, they don't have to wait for someone to greet them in a way that makes them feel welcome. And that's one of the things that families have indicated on the survey, is that when I walked into your school, I immediately felt welcome because somebody greeted me in a manner, and I didn't have to wait for someone to translate. And so we did that work at Wooddale Middle School, and our family said, we want you. Every other middle school that was operated by the local school district in Memphis Shelby County schools that our students would have ended up in, we have the data slides from Memphis Shelby County schools, data themselves, and their quality seat report says those students would attend an F school with a TVOS rating of 1. And so the report from the executive director of the Tennessee Public Charter Commission said just that. We know that currently, and we own this in our hearing, we put students on a pathway to proficiency, and that's something that does not happen overnight if you enter school reading 3 or 4 grade levels behind. We're not going to tell you that in 2 years, every student in the building, they're going to be performing at proficiency. No, we're going to meet them where they are and put them on a pathway to proficiency. You're going to see students grow. You're going to see families say that, hey, they make us feel welcome from the moment we walk in the front office. There's trust in this school. My child they feel safer than they've ever felt before. And that's what the executive director noted in her report. She says if these students had been anywhere else, and it's almost what her decision hinged on, was saying that the outcomes that they're going to have with you as the school authorizing, because that was not a decision about Wooddale Middle School or no Wooddale Middle School. That was which authorizer is going to deliver outcomes and results that are going to be better for the students and families of the Parkway Village community. And it was clear from the data, Iota Community Schools. Again, proficiency takes time. Building those relationships, establishing that trust, knowing the community well enough that you can meet those needs, it takes time. But we've done the work of putting students on a pathway to proficiency and a family saying, this is a school that's making a difference in this community. This is if I can't pay my light bill, I know the social worker there is not just there for my baby, they're there for me. Knowing the results of those family and community stakeholder surveys, the number of post-secondary visits, not just college, post-secondary. So last year's part of Everyone Goes to College Day, we took our students to a technical school. And they got to see welding, they got to see programming, they got to see refrigeration repair. But then us as the leaders with stories that are a little bit non-traditional, I got to tell them, hey, I started my career at a community college, y'all. And so here's how I was making money while I was in school doing computer repair. And so then the number of students, when we go back and survey them and say, how many of you that said college wasn't for you now are saying that a technical pathway might be the one for you? And so we do have those metrics, and those are metrics that we look at. What's the number of social worker referrals 1 year? How does that change the next year for the students who were referred the year prior? What's the number of disciplinary referrals? What's the number of outside referrals for additional mental health supports? Are we really making a difference in the lives of those students? And it's in the larger report, but it's also when we walk on a campus and I say, and I'm not gonna call that student's name, when I see Jan, I said, hey, I remember last year Jan had this number of disciplinary referrals. I remember the exact month that we put her into intervention, or that we connected her with a social worker. I remember those first 2 months you couldn't pry her away from the social worker. This year she hasn't had 2 office referrals. And so when we look at the data, it's not just how many office disciplinary referrals you have. It's for that student, how have we changed their trajectory? Because they might be the first one in their family that did not get put out of school in that first year.
All right. Thank you, sir. Ms. Newton, any additional questions? Okay. Ms. Baldwin?
Thank you. Appreciate you guys. I enjoyed reading the application. And I'm going to start and talk a little bit or ask some questions about your operations in Memphis and then work my way to Arkansas. And let me just start out by asking how, I guess you all are totally based in the Memphis area. Explain to us how you decided to come to Arkansas and how you picked Little Rock and Southwest Little Rock and kind of the process that you went through with that.
So we've had the wonderful opportunity to be able to partnership with the APSRC from the beginning. We have served students in Memphis for 10 years, as you've heard multiple times here. But our real passion is providing opportunity to students, whether they're here in Little Rock or whether they're in Memphis. We want to, when we're called, our name is called, we want to be able to have the opportunity to provide that to students. What we're very cognizant of is that we're not for all students. We're for students that are chronically under-resourced, students that have been overlooked consistently, and students that might not have another outlet. That's what we focus on. That's what we specialize in. That's what our wraparound service is for. That's what our model's built for. And so when we were approached to come here to Arkansas, the first thing we did is we entered the communities. We looked at the data. We said, are there students out there that have the same needs that we've been successful serving in Memphis? And what we found robustly in Southwest Little Rock is that, yes, those students are here. Yes, there needs to be an opportunity provided for those students. And yes, we believe that given the right partnerships here in Little Rock, we can come in and learn from you all, take what's really working here, and marry that with what we've been doing successfully in Memphis to provide those opportunities to students here in Little Rock.
Can I ask a question that related to yours? So one, you said you were approached, so if you can share any more information about how you were approached to expand to Arkansas. And then two, you're saying built upon what you do in Memphis, but I'm not seeing any elementary schools in Memphis, but I may be overlooking that. So just in conjunction with his question.
Jacquel Rogers, Executive Director. So we were invited to have a conversation with the Arkansas Resource Center.
Okay.
And so, yes, so that's what, so we were invited to have a conversation with them. And so after that conversation, we decided to apply for charter here in Arkansas. We thought, so our experience in Memphis, that we never had a feeder pattern was one of the reasons we wanted to do a K-12 system rather than starting. We've only done middle school and high school. So what we've come to understand is that if you're able to begin with a K-5, building that pattern of literacy and building that system from the beginning, you have a better opportunity to help those students from the very beginning. And so that was the rationale for starting a K-5 rather than 6-12 here in Arkansas. And so we sought to build our team around people who have elementary experience. So Deidre Ussery, who is not with us today, she had a death in her family. She is our K-5 kind of, I guess, expert. And so she has run very successful K-5 charters in Memphis. She operated Perea in Memphis for several years. And so she has joined our team to help us build the K-5 model.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for that.
Okay, sure. So following on with that question,
Okay.
I guess I was wondering on the high school that's in Memphis, where you do have graduations going to college, what percent of your students go to college, and do you track them once they're in college and keep up with them to see how many of those students graduate from college?
So I don't want to speak out of turn. Christina, last year, how many did we have? We will have to get, I don't want to make up a number, I really don't, but we did begin tracking over the past 2 years. Christina may be able to speak to it better than I.
Christina Austin, Chief Innovation Officer. For 2-year and 4-year colleges, we had 50% of the students that did go to a 2-year or 4-year college, but that also includes the trade schools as well. And so those students that did not, a lot of them took the opportunity to go into, well, not all, but a lot took the opportunity to go into the military and other options that were available for them. And some of the going straight into the workforce for some of the certifications that we had them obtain. And the second part of the question, I don't know what it was.
The follow-up once they get in college.
Okay, so yes, so now we have been tracking them, like she said, over the last 2 years to ensure that we are following up to make sure that they stay in college or stay in whatever pathway it is, or if something changes and they need assistance along the way, to know that they can always come back and make sure that we provide the resources necessary. Like she said earlier, some of them might not go for a few years, but when they do come back, have students being able to visit and say, hey, how do I get into college now? or I've changed my mind and I want to do this, and being able to provide those counseling services with the school counselor to be able to explore those pathways.
And thank you.
Mhm.
So I guess the next question would be, as a college preparatory school, with that being one of your primary focuses, what percent of college attendance graduation rates do you aim for? 50% seems a little low if you're college prep. So is there a goal that you all have that you're trying to work towards to get that rate
Yes,
higher?
so we would want, obviously, a much higher number than that. And so it would be that 85% of our students enroll in some type of post-secondary option. Doesn't necessarily have to be college, like we said earlier, but we do want them enrolled in a post-secondary option.
Okay, like, what'd you say, 70% or 80% or something?
Yes, no, I said 85%.
85%, okay, thank you. When you get young kids in, so starting back at the beginning, talk to, and they're coming out of public schools that I saw the grades for the public schools, they're not receiving great education there. Talk to us about how you benchmark those children to understand where they're at when they come to your school, and how do you measure the impact you're having on those kids as they go. And I guess my question is really following along with Ms. Newton's question about how do we know that you're making an impact different from the public schools that you're pulling from?
I can speak to the academic side of things. One of the slides that we talked about, and some of the data that I tried to point to in the presentation, was Bluff City High School, which is our school that is run by the Public Charter Commission. The students that go to Bluff City High School come primarily from Kirby Middle School and Wooddale Middle School, which are two of our other schools. Hillcrest is a standalone that does not have a feeder pattern that we have. And so what we've seen is the results over time in tracking those students, not only through state assessments, but also through iReady year to year, and seeing the growth from students that stay with us from 6th grade through 12th grade. Most of those students being able to outpace the national norms on that. And so that is one way that we track the academic side of things. And I don't know if you want to add to.
Chad Everett, Chief Operations Officer. We also track, again, through our intervention programming, disciplinary referrals, outside referrals for mental health supports. But to Christina's point that I want to sort of elevate there, Bluff City High School is sort of our independent charter that the organization started itself. And so again, to establish that feeder pattern as opposed to our other schools that we operated as part of the Achievement School District. And so one of the portions of their accountability framework is you get to determine what's called a mission-specific goal. And so based on your mission and the families that you serve, what is a metric that is a more reliable indicator of how are you serving families, how are you serving your students, as opposed to just applying the state accountability framework. And so for us, we selected iReady. So how's a student entering, as long as they're in the network, but from August to May. And so we have their the state accountability frameworks of their state test performance, but also iReady for what does that student's growth look like over time and how well we serve them. And so again, pathway to proficiency, but celebrating growth. And so that mission-specific goal is tied to the percentage of students who meet their overall growth target for that academic year. And so that's another concrete metric that we do report out on to our authorizers.
Can I follow up just to, so let's help me understand a little bit about Bluff City. And Ms. Newton, I really appreciate what you're saying about the amount of information that's there and kind of what comes our way and trying to decipher through it. So I have pulled up here a January 1st, 2023 Bluff City High School annual report. And when I scroll and look at academic performance, it's not great. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 categories. Anything from performance in ELA, performance in math, growth, absenteeism. Long story short, every one of those falls far below, which, who knows what that is, but, or does not meet. Can someone speak to that, please?
Yes, sir, absolutely. And for me, that one is personal. And I can tell you why. This is my third year in all the community schools. 2 years ago, I came to Greendale Public Schools, Tennessee, to be the principal of Bluff City High School. This is my first year as the chief in all the community schools. I'm about to have, and again, I told y'all we're very honest with our authorizers. I wouldn't stand before you and I won't duck a number to the first, and I'm gonna tell you the story. When Ms. Rogers spoke to the current network leadership team, those are the individuals who now sit here. Everyone who was on that leadership team before is no longer with the organization. We own the track record of data before this network leadership team, but it's why we are very intentional in highlighting the last 3 to 4 years of data, because it is the team that was here that was making the decisions for what happened in classrooms. My first summer at Bluff City High School, it was the fifth year of its charter. When I came in August, really end of July.
What year was that?
That was 3 years ago, so
Okay.
that was
Okay, 2022.
Opened my inbox to find a letter from the Charter Commission that had the site visit report from that year where they had visited campus in January. And it made me question some things about the work that I was about to do. Shortly after that, we received another notification from the Charter Commission that did lay out how they felt about the performance of their school, both operationally and academically. And after sitting in my office for a while, I remember I called Ms. Rogers and I said, well, I'm here now. I've left Mississippi, as they say, to come to the big city, so I'm committed because there's no going back now. The other thing that I would encourage the members to pull and that we can provide, that's not something that we wrote and not anything that we created, it's a site visit report from the last 3 years at Bluff City High School. The one before I got to Bluff City High School in that January was terrible. You're absolutely correct. You won't find one thing there that the Charter Commission, when they came in, said that they liked. They came that year and they said, the school's trending in the right direction, but the Charter Commission says, and if you were to find the chair of the Charter Commission, they'd say, we only want schools that are high performing in our portfolio, high quality. That's what we've always wanted. Now, where that gets tricky is when you do work in transformational communities, sometimes the labels and the numbers that we assign to schools in those communities without also calculating or working into the calculus the amount of resources that they've had over time, or that I'm holding up a school that is historically under-resourced in a community where I can count the number of shootings that happen each week, beside the affluent school that's 5 miles up the road where every kid comes in reading on grade level. If they don't, the parents can go find a tutor for them. And we're held to the same exact accountability framework. And so I do hear the members on that it was atrocious. But when we talk about this organization, our belief every kid deserves a world-class education. This network leadership team supported me in a way that I can't imagine as they were refining the model, and I didn't sit down until October. When they came that spring, they said, this is a different school. And they said, but we want high quality. So you will remain on academic probation. And that was the hardest moment I'd faced as a campus leader. To pour everything I have into something, but then say, was this gonna be the moment where I couldn't do it anymore? And I looked at the network leadership team and they reminded me change takes time. We need you to look at, like to the point of what Ms. Newton said, we need you to look at all the metrics and all the things that they said in that next site visit report that had changed. Because the phrase that they always used was, in order for that to change, the school needed to be making incremental improvements in the right direction, and they could see that, but as an authorizer, they could not just make a decision because it looked like it was trending in the right direction because it may not hold true. We came back the next year, we went back to work again. That next site visit, they brought members of their team who had been around for the entire decade that school had been, or not the entire decade, because it had been there 10 years, that was 7. That had been there 7 years, that were there when that school opened. And they said, this is the warmest, most welcoming, and academic data trending in the right direction that this school has ever been, including the first 2 years when we rolled one grade level in at a time where their school was TVOS level 5. And so that last slide that talked about Bluff City's academic performance from the last school year, the reason that's personal to me and the reason that I love serving on this leadership team, the reason that I'm excited as this leadership team is about going into a place that reminds me of the place that I came from, to not just do this work. I hear you all saying, like, forget that you've done this work in Memphis. I started my career in DeSoto County, Mississippi. I'm from Walls, Mississippi. And I know that students in need are not just those in the heart of the city. This team has done the research and knows what it is to go in and say it looks very different in Mississippi, in Arkansas, when you're talking about what is not the big city as some folks see Memphis. If you review those site visit reports and the academic data of Bluff City over the last 3 years, our authorizers have said it, they put it in writing, it's not something that were created, it's what the way performance went on the state metrics, including graduation rate. This is the best Bluff City high schools look. That was not a whim, that was not some happy accident because Chad Everett was leading the building. That was through the intentional refinement of our academic model, the shifts that we made to get more students certifications on campus, providing students more opportunities by putting them on buses and taking them on post-secondary visits, bringing those social workers on campus because I, as a principal, couldn't sit in my office all day long and talk to everybody about feelings. I gave them all I had, but I'll need to be in classrooms teaching and coaching and doing that work to support early career teachers and making sure the teachers were in classrooms. So this leadership team will never run from Mr. Davis, what you found right there. Because
Let me ask you,
everything on our has been part of the journey.
So in your application, and I did enjoy reading it, a lot of good narrative about what you guys are doing. I kept waiting for the quantifiable numbers to see the great numbers on what you're doing. I just didn't see that section in the application, which makes it hard for us to make a decision because it's hard to make a decision based only on narrative. You want to see numbers too, finance numbers. So let me ask you this: in Arkansas, we grade schools A through F. Do they do that in Tennessee? Do you guys have school grades? Okay, could you share your school grades with us, school by school?
So, yes, sir. Wooddale Middle School last year was a C. Bluff City was on academic probation with that last round of data. That was halfway through my term of leadership, was an F. Kirby Middle School was a D, and then Hillcrest High School was an F. And so if you're authorizing panel, and I guess it was the good Lord's will that I be the one standing here for this question. I know what you feel in the pit of your stomach. It's what I felt when I opened that letter saying Bluff City High School is on academic probation. But that same authorizing body, the same one that put my building on academic probation, and I say mine because it's gonna forever be mine, that's the same one that voted to say that you're a better authorizer for Wooddale Middle School than Memphis Shelby County Schools, and the metrics are there in the report. And so when we say, what can you go find, just as surely as you can find that, you can find where the same person that put it on probation and made that recommendation to the commissioners is the same one that said, now I'm gonna let you keep that building. We don't run from the numbers. When we talk about doing this work in transformational communities, Peppertree Apartments are also the ones across the street from Hillcrest High School. So you can't tell the story of Hillcrest High School and its academic performance without talking about the student who was killed on Facebook Live in that apartment complex while the school day was going on, and what it was to lead that. You can't tell that story of my father, who's from Memphis in his career, who was robbed and almost killed at the store that was right next to Peppertree, and so it's interesting that I now came back to live in that, or to work in that community. Because when you talk about chronic absenteeism, if you don't also factor in how transient those families are and what are those additional community supports in trying to track graduation cohort, then we've only told part of the story. And so when they say the half has never been told, that's never more true than in those who go in and do transformational work. And so we don't run from the numbers, and that's why we don't promise sunshine and rainbows. But we say of this leadership team, if you run the numbers over the last 3 years of any of our schools with the refinement of the academic model that we can point to, the metrics and the numbers that you speak of are there. The one thing that we can say that has been stronger over the tenure of the schools in Tennessee is finance and operations.
My last question would be on the location in Southwest Little Rock. You all are definitely going to be somewhere in Southwest Little Rock. You don't have a specific spot yet, but you're not going to change that to somewhere else in Little Rock?
Daniel Penranda, CFO. As I spoke about earlier, what we did in coming to Little Rock is really look into the data, look to see where the kids were that mimic the kids that we are, great at serving, and that's what we found in Southwest Little Rock. Particularly the Meadow Cliff neighborhood really has a demographic and a population that mimics what we have been successful in serving in the past. And so we are honed in on Southwest Little Rock in that Meadow Cliff area. Yes, sir.
To that point, just real quick question, before passing on to Mr. Davis. You're focusing on Southwest Little Rock. One huge question is, how do you handle and address English language learners who don't speak English?
Christine Austin, Chief Innovation Officer. Through a lot of the work that we've already done with that, I think it was one of the slides that went up, but Wooddale Middle School, our school where we've actually seen the most growth, is heavily populated with EL learners, or English language learners. And so making sure that we continue to provide the support from the district office, having coordinators, and then both also that are actually in the school, curriculum specialists, to ensure that we're providing those services for the students, to see the growth needed. Also adding supplemental curriculums in for them. Some of the things that we currently are using is ILET ELL that is in correspondence with our curriculum. So just making sure that we are providing professional development for teachers, time for them to co-plan with the teachers where they are going in and co-teaching, providing all the opportunities for students to have grade level curriculum, but also the intervention and supports necessary for them to be successful.
And again, Chad Everett, Chief Operations Officer, I would say with that also parent engagement. And so employing individuals in the front office that both speak families' home language, but then also the way in which we approach family meeting nights. So the second that the principal finishes speaking, or maybe the principal's not the first one who speaks if they're not, or if they are bilingual, they can be the first one. If they're not the first, there's someone standing right next to them that doesn't wait for families to say like, hey, can you tell me what they said? That it's addressed from the front of the room. And so it's not just those things that we do at the classroom level, but those families, we talk about eliminating barriers, feeling like they can engage the school and that they are valued members of the school community, mean just as much, and not just once a month during our Hispanic Heritage Month celebrations. Even though those are wonderful and they're planned by the students, those things that we do to make sure those families understand their students' grade reports and that they value their students' education, and when they call, that there's someone that right away they can speak to. And those additional supports, it escapes me out the name of the translation service that we pay for, where it's not just a person in the building on Google Translate, but they're able to, any teacher, any staff member, if there's not someone available right away, can pick up the phone and call in for immediate translation services if you have to call a family and have a meeting. So not just what we do with teachers and curriculum, but also what we do to make sure that families are able to freely engage with the school.
Christine Austin again. Just one thing to add, when I was talking about the supports provided for our students that are English language learners, I can't speak to the specific data point because a lot of our stuff is still embargoed for this school year, but we do have a positive growth in our state report card data for the WIDA, which will now be ELPA 21. So the proficiency data and the growth from this past school year was a significant amount due to the things that I talked about.
Good. Mr. Chair, could we have a break?
So what's before us now is, first of all, thank you for your time, but we want to be sensitive to everyone's needs. So let's do this. Let's take a 5-minute break and start back again at 10. Well, let's take an 8-minute break. Start back at 10:35. Thank you. We'll resume our session here of questioning. We will have Mr. Davis.
My apologies, because my questioning may require various people to kind of get up and down, so the exercise. First of all, as the other folks on the panel have said, thank you so much for the time, the attention, and everything that you've done. It is very clear that you all are very passionate about the work that you do, and that's always the best sign. I'm going to jump right into a couple of questions here. When I look at and hopefully somebody can help me with this. I need more explanation around the absenteeism. When I look at the report, it looks like 42.1%. Even when I compare it to schools in the district, that's twice the percentage. Most are around 21, the high is 26 in regards to traditional school districts, and the high on the charter side is 23. So nearly double the amount of chronic absenteeism, 22, 23 for Wooddale. Can someone speak to that, please?
So coming out of the pandemic, chronic absenteeism ballooned for us. And so even though our chronic absenteeism rate was 42%, it is still about a 15% decrease from the previous year. So we were able to decrease our chronic absenteeism by 15% from the previous year. Also, and we're very honest about our chronic absenteeism rates and all that we have done to improve. And so what we did was hire what we call student family support specialists, and so along with the social workers, because we saw that our students were having, and it is generally students who have issues getting to school. We have a very transient population at Wooddale Middle School, and so what we wanted to do was really work to support those students. So we brought in the student family support specialists. They make phone calls, they make home visits along with our social workers. We provide support to those families and resources, but after COVID, once we returned to school from the pandemic, I think our chronic absenteeism rates went to, I think they were something around 48 to 50%. After the pandemic, they had really skyrocketed, and we did a lot of work to bring those numbers down. So 42% is a lot lower than it was previously.
What is it now?
So
Around.
this year it is around, I think it is much lower. It is somewhere around 27%.
So how do you explain the difference?
It is all of the work that we've been doing.
Well, and I understand that. Let me,
Mm-hmm.
here is my question. When we look at academic performance, you're asking us to consider the comparison data between the neighborhood schools and your institution. So I'm taking that same mind frame when I think about the chronic absenteeism.
Right.
I'm comparing your data to neighborhood institutions. So I'm trying to understand the difference in which, first of all, based upon this report, your chronic absenteeism is nearly double what the neighborhood institutions look like, and what I'm hearing from you was actually much higher than that. So why or how did that happen compared to neighborhood institutions when you perform better than them academically?
So when you actually look at the other neighborhood schools, we actually have a slide, and we can share it with you, where we decreased and their chronic absenteeism increased. And so that may be why our academic performance was better, because even though their numbers are lower. their chronic absenteeism increased over last year, where ours decreased. And so we saw more students in school over last year, even though our number was higher than theirs. We saw more students in school. Their numbers, the neighborhood schools, the schools who were around us within proximity to us in Shelby County schools, had an actual increase, where you can see the comparative schools show an average of over a 4% increase in their chronic absenteeism, and ours was actually a 21% increase from the decrease from the previous year. And so, like I said, we have really worked with our students to get them in the building, and because we know how important it is to academic improvement. And so that is why we've seen year over year an increase in our academic improvement for our students, because we've been able to get them in the building.
Okay, thank you. Just quick question. This would be the first school you all would not have inherited. This would be the first school, correct, that you are doing for opening?
No, Bluff City was the first school we opened as a freestanding independent charter.
Okay, so you opened Bluff City?
Yes, we did, in
Okay.
2017.
Okay. Talk to me just a little bit about enrollment, growth model. You know, we've talked about the number of students you hope to enroll. How do you think about enrollment? Are you a slow growth model, starting, kindergarten, adding a grade a year?
Mm-hmm.
Are you completely, if approved, opening K through 12 and taking, how do you think about that?
So it is a slow.
Or K through, yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay,
Go-
it's a slow growth model. And so we would begin, and Dan can speak to it as well, but we would begin adding a grade each year.
Yeah.
So it would not be all out a fully built out school,
Okay.
but it would be a slow growth model.
And in K through 8, I said
Yes.
12. Okay.
Mhm.
And where do you start that?
Oh.
Yeah.
Dan.
Dan Pineda, CFO. So we're actually looking at this as a joint effort. What we know is the earlier we can impact students, the more successful we're going to be in our outcomes. So we're starting year one with a K1 and the K5 and a 6th grade in the middle school. K1 at approximate enrollment of 100 students per grade, and the 6th grade at 200. Each year consecutively we'll add a grade in each one of the schools. So the second year.
I'm sorry, just quickly.
Yes, sir.
I know you said K1, 100 kindergartners and 100 first graders?
Correct.
The first year?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And then 200 6th graders. And the following year, we would add another grade. So the 2nd graders would age to 3rd. We'd bring in a new kindergarten class. The 6th graders would age to 7th. We'd bring in a new 6th grade
Yeah,
class.
talk to me about what that looks like then. I mean, based upon my experience, I don't know, it's 100 kindergartners, 100 first graders. How do you engage community in a way that gains the trust that you have 200 families saying, yes, we're
Yeah.
willing, or roughly 200 families
Yeah.
saying we're willing to enroll our kid the first year, particularly in this part of the community that's very close-knit and tight?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's incredibly hard work and work that cannot be underappreciated. As we've talked about before, in Memphis, a majority of our schools are transformation schools. That means that I'm coming into your high school and saying, this school might have been here for 30 years operating, but it's not good enough. And we're coming in to make changes to provide you with opportunities you wouldn't have otherwise. That's hard on people. If your mother graduated from that high school, your grandmother graduated from high school, that is hard. And so what we know is being strongly united with the community, listening to their needs, and working to fulfill those every day is going to be critical.
Yeah.
And every year, we have over 2,000 kids that choose us in Memphis.
But you're acknowledging that's not what you're doing here, though, right?
Correct.
You're not taking over a school,
Correct.
right? So there's a different sort of approach, or what you may be saying, which is fair, is that we've learned a lot by doing this turnaround work that we think is applicable to the start of a school.
Chad Everett, Chief Operations Officer. I was not in the organization when Bluff City started, but the work that you're speaking to, and I do want to highlight that, is that Bluff City was a school that the organization at that time applied for, and as a standalone, it was not one that was inherited. And so that rollout, although it happened at the secondary level, was in the same way of where you had to attract students from long-standing Memphis Shelby County families to come to that building. But one of the two things that we do that we believe are critically important, one of which is you don't just open your doors to the community, you go out into the community, but you also have to know who's already been engaging. When we talk about trust, who trusts you and who's your conduit into that community. So again, I go back to who we're engaging as board members that have been doing their work in the schools here, but also who's been doing their work in the community that families know and trust. Then going into the community, we're old school in our approach, and door knocking is one of those. It may not be my favorite summertime activity, but my executive director believes in you knock on doors and you talk to families, you hear what's going on, and then you shift your model, you do what you need to around those things. The other thing is that I've never in my entire career said that our families don't keep the high performance students at home and say, I'm only gonna send you these. They send us their absolute best product, and when you put in front of them academic performance data of would you rather your student be here or here, here's the work that's been done. And so again, the slides that Ms. Rogers was speaking to were those from the Wooddale appearing deck. And so and this is the same one that was used in our public hearing, and Christina's over there. The reason she's in her laptop is she's feverishly putting together a sort of a quick data packet for you all that shows academic performance across all 4 of our schools with last year's performance compared to this year minus the embargo data. And so as soon as we get that, I'm gonna press send on the email to Dustin so that he can get the members that, again, our goal is to be transparent. But with Bluff City, that was the work. Kirby High School is right around the corner. It's a long-standing Memphis Shelby County school where, why are we gonna send our children to you? If we did that work at Wooddale Middle School, letter grade release, Wooddale was a C, but it outperformed 41% of middle schools in Memphis Shelby County schools. And so when you talk about it's not and it's sort of the same thing here. It's not a matter of are these students gonna be in schools? It's where is it more likely that the outcomes for these students are gonna be at a level that those families and those students deserve. And so when we look at the performance of the schools and the work that we have done, again, we don't run from past performance, but the work of this leadership team in refining our model, it's what has shown up, including when a high expectations authorizer.
How did Kirby do?
Last school year?
Yes.
Give me 1 second.
They were 2003. It's still embarked, and so it hasn't been released.
Excuse, okay.
No, if you want.
So 1 second, because we want to make we want to be as
Okay.
transparent as we can with you all without inadvertently saying something about embargo data. So if you give us just a couple moments, we're going to send you the specific percentages by subject area and by accountability framework category for the state of Tennessee. So if you give us just a couple moments, and we recognize across performance frameworks, so again, by subject, WIDA access percentage, chronic absenteeism, all those things.
Let me ask another question while you all are working on that. According to the achievement, I want to make sure the annual authorizers report released January 1st, 2024, and I think there are 3 institutions that are listed that you all, 2 of the 3 received a does not meet regarding a decrease in the number of students scoring below or approaching by 10%. So I'm assuming that there was a certain number of students that scored below the standard, and it seems like in both of those institutions, from their last report to this one, that there was less than a 1% change in that. Does that sound familiar or accurate?
So of the 3 in the portfolio that you're speaking to, which are the 2?
It is Kirby Middle. If you wouldn't mind, I can show you it right here.
Yes, sir.
Here is the metric, and there is, and that's Kirby. And then when I go to, what's after Kirby here? Wooddale. Same thing. Now, to be fair to everyone out there, there is a number of exceedings and meeting and standards. So there are a fair number, a large number of exceeding and meeting standards. That's just one that jumped out to me in regards to does not meet.
So one of the things you look at, Chad Everett, Chief Operations Officer. When you look at Tennessee's accountability framework and the way success rate for a school works is you take the total number of tests in the building. So let's take a middle school, 3 grade levels. Let's say there's 100 students. They test in English, math, science, and social studies. Every test counts. That's my denominator. So if I'm calculating success rate, the number of valid tests provided, there's no testing irregularities. The numerator there is going to be for all of the students who are at met or exceeded expectations, and that gives you my school-wide proficiency rate. So when you're talking about that decrease in that bottom group, the ones that were not at met or exceeded expectations by 10%, what I did note on there was an increase, it just was not at that 10%. And so one of the things we talk about, that working, so to speak, in the time that it takes, and why we have to speak to this specific leadership team, is while it may not have been at that 10 percentage point increase at the number meeting or exceeding expectations, so being at proficiency expectations for there, we did see an increase in student performance. What's not included there, again, we have the accountability framework is a little wonky because you have the proficiency measure here, but then you also have your student growth measure, which is TVOS. And so you would have to put next to that the TVOS score to say if this is the number of students who are not achieving necessarily proficiency, where's the school performing in terms of growth, though, for the population that they serve year over year? Are they hitting their growth expectations?
Okay. Thanks for that explanation.
Yes, sir.
I think the other area that I saw that was mentioned was special ed services. That was also something that was I think a call out in a report. Is that something someone can speak to? I just would love to get a better understanding of how that special ed result arose. We got an explanation in regards to what I just mentioned, but when I look at, I think that same report, I can tell you in just a second here. It's called Access Right to Special Services, Does Not Meet. And this was the high school. Well, Hillcrest High School did experience challenges with adequately serving special ed students during school year 22-23. That's on page 45 of the report. So I'm just want a better understanding about how you're going about serving special needs and and students that learn differently.
So we were pulling the annual report so we could look at the same categories. I can talk to what we've sort of shifted in our model, or the biggest thing that's made a difference for special education students. One of the things that calculates into your annual reporting, and then of course that is monitored through desktop monitoring in Tennessee, is your compliance reporting. So are those meetings being conducted within the timeline when initial consent for testing is given? Does testing happen within that timeline? And then you also have, through your bottom 25% in super subgroups, what's happened with those students' overall academic performance. When it comes to from a compliance lens, one of the things the network did was to employ 2 special education program administrators with its current leadership team, and their responsibility is to monitor compliance and coach in classrooms of newer special education teachers and maybe experienced ones that need additional supports or scaffold put in place for them. And so across our 4 schools in our portfolio, that is their responsibility, to engage in that sort of internal monitoring of compliance before it ever makes it out. The second thing is push-in inclusion services are good. They do provide students with services, but it is no replacement for what we think of as true co-teach, where there's a true co-plan that occurs before instruction occurs. And so for us, the shift and refinement of model is ensuring that there is co-planning time for that inclusion teacher before they ever enter that classroom with that general education teacher. And so when we engage in network-wide professional development, which happens on Wednesdays for us school-wide, there's time there for that special education teacher who's providing those inclusion services to plan alongside the general education teacher, because it's not a matter of in that classroom, oh, you're going to work with the special education students. It's a matter of where are our current skill successes, where are our skill gaps, and how can we work together based on our content knowledge, both gen ed teacher and inclusion teacher, to serve all of those students. So instead of it, you pull the SPED small group, no, that's not the case. It is you pull the students who are weaker on RI 9-2, and you teach that small group on whatever the subset skill is there. I may continue doing whole group here. And so providing that co-planning time, and then really in modeling and using our special education program administrators to show them how to plan intentionally and to be very bite-sized and explicit in our teaching is something, and I'm not gonna nerd out too tough here. Academics is my thing that gets me excited even as a principal. But when you think about deconstructing a standard so that you are truly targeting the skills deficit, not just saying, I'm teaching this standard today, that doesn't just benefit special education students, that benefits every student in the classroom, because then you can actually target the need and target the success. And so with us providing co-planning time and then really supporting everyone in what does it mean to teach explicitly, to deconstruct a standard, those are the things now where we see shifts in performance of those students there.
I'd just like to take a moment to kind of frame a few things for us. And sorry, this is not direct to your special education question. I just wanted to frame who we are in the organization and the students that we can serve. Our average high school student, 9th grader, comes in reading at a 3.4 grade level. We grow them on average 2.1 years in reading for every year that they're with us. So if we have them for 4 years of high school, and only 4 years of high school in the city of Memphis, they will never achieve proficiency because they won't have enough time to catch up. When we talk about recruiting for our students, it's not a you're on grade level and you have the option of going to the local school and doing really well there, are coming to us. It's the, if you went to local school, you'd be expelled, or you've already dropped out of school. These are the kids that we're serving. They're chronically under-resourced, chronically underserved, constantly overlooked students. And we're doing the work we can to grow them, to get them to where their peers are. But in the city of Memphis, we're coming in, as we said, so far behind that comparing us to the suburban district, which is the metrics you're looking at, we're not gonna match the suburban district. That's not who we are, that's not who we're going to be. What we're going to do is meet them where they are, meet their families where they are, and move them from coming in 9th grade at a 3rd grade reading level to graduating high school maybe at 11th grade reading level. And that's why this coming in Arkansas is so important for us to get to our students at the kindergarten level and engage them there. It's so that before these deficiencies occur, before these children have the opportunity to fall through the cracks, we can provide them with a lifeline that helps them guide themselves through our help and their families' help to opportunity that they wouldn't have otherwise. So we're not competing, or we're not in the same space as the local schools. We're in a space of all those kids that no one else is gonna give them a
This
chance.
is my ignorance in Memphis geography. So
Yes,
when we talk about Oak Haven and Wooddale are not in the same geography? Oh, yeah.
So they, Jockwell Rogers. So they are in 38118 when you
Okay.
look at our demographics. It is a very, I think, mixed resource. When you know how neighborhoods shift as you go.
Sure.
And so Memphis is very much like that. And so Hickory Hill community is very much like that. And so Wooddale is what is called Parkway Village. And so Parkway Village is at the center of Hickory Hill and would probably be a little more economically depressed than maybe the other areas of Hickory Hill. And so I think what is really important to understand, and Dan brought context to the framework in Tennessee, I often argue is that it's not apples to apples who we serve compared to, my son went to Middle College, and it is one of the highest performing high schools in the city or in the state. We are compared to that same high school. And so it is very challenging to have the same expectations for, we try to provide the same level of academic rigor and the same level of success. But 70% of our students are in Tier 3 RTI, where at my son's school, you have to actually apply to get into that school, and you have to be college and career ready to get into that school. So we are compared, it's the same comparison.
Sure.
And so in the Charter Commission where Bluff City is, they do not really consider growth at all. They only want proficient. And so it is the greatest measure, and we are always striving for proficiency.
I'm a growth guy, so
Yeah,
you don't have to explain it.
Well, Tennessee is a proficiency. They are a state that looks at proficiency. They are not, growth is growth, but they want proficiency. And so we are striving for proficiency. We do really well with growth, with who we have. But what we really emphasize is that we have done transformation work. We do not have a feeder pattern is very important. And everyone understands that, especially in charter work. It is very important that you have a feeder pattern, that you have your hand on students as they progress in their academic transition through school. We get students in 6th grade. Our 6th graders come in on average reading at the 3rd grade level. Our 9th graders on average come in reading at 4th or 5th grade level. So when you think about the expectation for a high school, our high schools, the only kind of feeder that we have is Bluff City, where we get students from Kirby and Wooddale. And so those students often perform better than at, say, Hillcrest, where we have no touch point for those students before they enter our doors in 9th grade. But those students who stay with us from 9th grade to 12th grade see a significant amount of growth. And so, as I said, Hillcrest was the lowest performing school in the state when we first engaged with them. But we've seen varying degrees of success with them. We've been a TVOS 3 at Hillcrest, we've been a TVOS 4, we've been a 5. We would love to say we have knocked it out of the park and they are performing, but they are growing. And it is very challenging when to stand before you and say that I have a 9th grader who came to me at 15 years old, reading at 2nd grade level, and expect me to get that 9th grader who is reading at 2nd grade level to take an on-grade level test in the 9th grade in April. So to get him from 2nd grade, what our screener said, he was in 2nd grade, to get him to 9th grade by April, because that is the expectation of the state, and to get him to proficient. Now, I can grow him. I'm magic. I'm magical, but I don't perform magic. We love the students we serve, and we love the work that we do, and we work very hard to provide those students the supports they need.
Yeah.
We are teaching 9th grade students phonics.
One last question from me. It is obviously critically important, and you've indicated this around the folks that you're able to help you do this work, classroom leaders.
Yes.
How do you identify, what does that look like? If you were to come into Arkansas, how are you going to identify, teachers, building leaders? We've seen this done a number of different ways. What's your approach to that?
So we've been pretty successful at having a multi-state recruitment process. We've been recruiting in Arkansas for a while, even before now. We have several people who currently work for us in Memphis who are from Arkansas, because we have a recruiter who works for us, and she recruits year-round. It isn't just during a particular season. And so we have relationships with several of the colleges and universities in Mississippi, Arkansas, Missouri. And so she visits on a regular basis. We try to recruit from the teacher prep programs in several different states, but we go as far as Philadelphia. We go throughout the country. It is almost a whosoever will, let him come, but we really work hard to recruit teachers from the tri-state area because they understand the students, they understand the communities that we serve, but we work very hard to select people who are very close to the state and very close to the community. But other than that, we really try, like I said, my goal is to build relationships, even stronger relationships with like Philander Smith, with the University of Arkansas, with those colleges who have teacher prep programs. We have a program that we are really working hard to build. It is the first 5. Spend your first 5 years with us and we will grow you, because we really believe in investing in teachers and teacher coaching. I came to the organization initially as a teacher, as an instructional coach, as an English instructional coach, and that was my job, to really work with teachers, first year, second, third year teachers, 20-year teachers, to really help them improve their instructional practices and ensure that they are bringing those practices that are research-based and very that make sure they have very strong academic practices to the classroom.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'll add one thing to what Chad Everett, Chief Operations Officer, I add one thing to what Ms. Rogers said. It's recruit the best, build the strongest. And so every school organization works for recruitment, but then also what do you do to develop teachers and building leaders for the realities of what school buildings look like today. And so in addition to our academic framework and shifts in curriculum, we made shifts in how we coach our people. So the First 5 program is the first 5 years, initiate, navigate, co-create, innovate, and elevate. But the true focus is in that first year of teaching, you may be able to be excellent, right? And so we're going to lean into your strengths, not your deficits, but we're going to be very intentional about what we do to make sure in your first 5 years you're successful and don't go under and leave the profession. With our principals, monthly collaboration meetings with principals, assistant principals, and instructional coaches is something that we already do, where they are pulled off campus for intensive PD with network leaders and outside professional development providers when we bring them in, but where we are both looking at what is your current data, how are you taking that back into your building, how are you performing on or compared to our annual goals for this year, but really, and then pushing into the schools and coaching them in the moment. We believe in not being obtrusive in a classroom, but being able to whisper in and coach a teacher right then, but also for a principal. Hey, did you notice the way in which you engage with that teacher? Did you notice with that student? Here's the question I would go back and follow up with. Hey, that student that was in the corner of the classroom, what can you tell me about their data? And so it's not just about what you do to recruit talented individuals, but when it comes to workplace fulfillment and people staying, the work that we do to develop them where they feel like there's professional growth. Everybody doesn't want to be a principal at the end of their career. But how do we work in such a way where people feel like I'm still growing and improving my practice? And so those collaborations that we do, once a month we have network-wide PD where all 4 schools are engaging together. And then at school sites each weekly they engage as a group, but then another day of the week they're coached by their principal on our intellectual preparation process. So where you're sitting with your lesson plan, with your principal, going through a dress rehearsal or whatever it is that you need based on what those plans look like in that data. So not just recruitment, what are we doing to develop?
Thank you. No further questions from me.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. I'd like to preface this by saying I have a set of questions, but before taking a deep dive into those questions, there are several areas. We've heard a lot about your performance in Tennessee. There's also law here in the state of Arkansas, and want to ensure there's compliance in those areas, whether or not it's a special ed or gifted and talented, library media services, et cetera. So we have on the Zoom one of our professionals who has a question, and Ms. Yvonne Green, if you could come off mute and ask your question, that would be great.
Sure, thank you. So when you were clarifying about special education and you said that you follow a co-teach model to ensure that students have access in the general education curriculum, we appreciate that. And also, there is a federal requirement to have a continuum of services. So I'm just wondering how you address students who have extensive needs that may be outside of what can happen in that general education classroom.
Christina Austin, Chief Innovation Officer. Depending on where the students fall, co-teaching is not the only thing that is part of the inclusive services, but then also having SPED intervention, standalone time for that to happen. Having for students that have severe cognitive disabilities, for them to have also their services that are separate from the general education setting, depending on the testing and whether or not they're in those areas. So making sure, again, that inclusion, SPED pull-out intervention, and then also the other special education setting that is available. Don't know if that answered.
Thank you.
Okay.
Are there any additional questions from our colleagues on Zoom? If not, I have a deep dive into a few questions, but I think one of the things that's going to spark a few other questions from the panel is the fact that there's some waivers. And I'd love for Ms. Haywood to come before us and share the existing waivers that they're applying for.
Good morning again. Again, my name is Kaylee Haywood. I'm Department of Education attorney. And attached to the agenda was my initial legal review. I unfortunately did not send my final legal review to Ms. Simmons, Dory Simmons, until it was too late to be put on the agenda. But after looking at the final waiver request that the charter submitted, at this time, I don't have any legal concerns about any of the specific statutes or rules or standards that they are requesting to waive. I would just like to point out that there is just a typographical error on the waiver topic 1. The very last statute should be 614-101 et sec. There was just a typo there. And then as far as the library media specialist, which is topic 3, they of course are requesting to waive the requirement to have a specific library media specialist. However, they do still plan to offer library media services, and from looking at section 5 paragraph H, additional operations in their application, it appears that they have what's called a campus instructional coach, and that's who determines kind of what materials are in their media services. And so it seems like that may be their equivalent to a library media specialist. So I have no concerns that they will provide that service, just not under the specific title of a library media specialist. And I do know earlier the school counselor waiver was discussed. That is waiver topic 7. And I had suggested at one time to them that typically when people do get school counselor waivers, they ask for both the standard 4E1 and 4E2 waivers. However, from the discussion I heard earlier, it seems like they're not necessarily needing a waiver of that ratio number. They were just wanting the waiver of the license. And so if they would like, they could amend the waiver request today on the record to only request a waiver of standard 4E1. So that would allow them to hire social workers instead of an actual licensed counselor, but then they still would be required to comply with 4E2, which is that ratio requirement, which it sounds like they're intending to comply with anyway. So yes, at this time, no further legal concerns. I do believe they have an additional bit of information to share about topic 4, classified employee minimum salary waiver request.
Yes, we'd love to hear from them on those.
Good morning. My name is Trip Walter, staff attorney, Arkansas Public School Resource Center. I believe there are two things here. Number one, I specifically wanted to address Section 4, classified employee minimum salary. In that IOTA, the applicant would like to withdraw its request for Arkansas Code Annotated 6-172403. And then I believe representatives of IOTA have further information, perhaps on other waivers.
So, for the record, Ms. Haywood identified a few areas, but we want to make sure that that's exactly from you what you want, especially in regards to the council waiver and others.
Christina Austin, the one that it was, can you help me remember, was it 42 or 41? 4E2 is the ratio. Okay, so 4E2 we would like to remove from the waivers and keep 4E1.
And do you need clarification on any others? We already prepared a statement from you in regards to any of the waivers. I'm sorry?
Chad Everett, Chief Operations Officer. If the panel did not have any additional questions, we didn't have any additional statements, but if any clarification is needed for any of our waivers, we're glad to provide it. I just want to be mindful again of everyone's time if no additional clarification is needed.
In regards to waivers, any additional questions on waivers?
Not on the waivers, I do have additional questions.
Okay. There are a set of questions additionally, yes. We'll entertain those questions. All right. I understand that there's another member, another colleague that's on Zoom that has a question. So please come off mute and share.
Thank you. I believe that Cassandra just asked it, just making sure that if there's a waiver of the librarian, how will the library services be provided without librarians, specifically the teaching of the Arkansas Library Media Standards? Thank you.
I'm sorry, if you could identify yourself in your title, please.
I apologize. Lupe Peña de Martinez, Director of Student Support Services.
Thank you, Lupe.
Chad Everett, Chief Operations Officer. So the teaching of the library media standards would occur through our English language arts classes. So inquiry, ongoing research, all of the standards that are listed there in the framework will be addressed by English language arts teachers. And then we do employ campus curriculum specialists, so use of the library media space to ensure that students have access to materials if any additional needed, and the space itself to ensure that all materials comply with Arkansas law would fall to our campus instructional coaches.
Lupe, any additional questions?
Yes, there is a follow-up. Again, Lupe Peña de Martinez, Director of Student Support Services. Who will provide the training to ensure those standards are adequately taught by the classroom teachers?
So 2 levels of sort of oversight that we have is both the campus instructional coaches, a member of the leadership team who supports and oversees all curricular and academic pacing and ensuring that teachers are in compliance. But then also at the network level, we do have a managing director of teacher and learning, as well as the member of our team who is not here, Chief Ussery, our Chief of Academic Innovation, who provides that oversight to ensure at the classroom level that teachers are following the process with fidelity that we've defined for what that instruction should look like.
Thank you.
All right. Any additional questions from colleagues on Zoom?
Excuse me, Cassandra Barnett. I'm library program advisor for school libraries. I still want to do another follow-up question because those standards are specific to information literacy,
digital literacy. So are those people that are going to be providing the training, are they qualified to provide that training? Or are you planning on consulting someone who is qualified as a trainer in those standards?
Chad Everett, Chief Operations Officer, and thank you for the clarification of the question. I want to make sure that I clarified my response. The oversight to ensure that they are properly taught is handled by the individuals that I mentioned. We would have to engage outside support, again, Arkansas Public School Resource Center and others, to ensure that the initial training for the oversight did occur with fidelity and alignment with the law, like those who are certified in library and media services.
Okay, just a comment. That's part of my job for DESE, so certainly be sure to reach out to me and I can help you set that up.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I believe there are additional questions from the panel. Ms. Moore?
Sure. So once again, thank you for all the information you shared. I know we've had a lot of questions doing our due diligence. I was curious, as you listed the surrounding schools in Southwest Little Rock, I was wondering if you were aware of recent charters that had been approved that may make it difficult for you to get the numbers that you're hoping in enrollment, because last year we approved the Academies of Math and Science, which is in Southwest Little Rock, and if you listed that somewhere in your application, I apologize, I didn't see it, it wasn't one of the neighborhood schools listed. And then this year we recently approved Somerset, that would have elementary, middle, and high school as well. So I'm just concerned about you being able to get the enrollment that you're needing with this other schools that are trying to serve similar population that you hope to support, which could in turn affect your financials. So just your thoughts on that, if that's something that y'all looked into.
Daniel Penarenda, CFO. Thank you for bringing that up to us. I think what we do want to draw a distinction is what we're providing our students is a little different than what AMS and the students that they're targeting for those same neighborhoods. As we mentioned before, our students are going to be ones that are particularly underserved and have fallen through the gaps. And through gathering data for that community, it doesn't seem like those students are currently being served, and the quantities within that community still capture that need that we've represented within our application. What I can say is we do have a very robust contingency process where we right-size our budget. And so in the instance where the enrollment is not meeting the expectations that you see in the budget, we do look critically at every line item within our budget and make sure that we are making the appropriate adjustments so that we can still have a strong school community. We've been successful in this in Tennessee for 10 years now, and as we speak, we've not had a school with a negative net income in that period. And of course, we've missed our enrollment 1 or 2 times, right? And so be very cognizant of making sure that our needs of our schools are being represented at the base level in the budget, and then being flexible with right-sizing that budget to meet the revenue streams that we have.
Okay, you mentioned AMS, how about Somerset? And I'd have to go back and look at Somerset's application because I've read a lot of applications since then, but I feel like they were targeting the same population that you were targeting.
I'm sorry, ma'am, I
Somerset
don't
not-
have a understanding of Somerset. I'm sorry about that.
Not necessarily, they weren't trying to reach students who aren't being served by the public schools in Little Rock?
Not necessarily the same area.
Okay, because I didn't think they had a location but they said in Little Rock and that they would determine, and they included Southwest Little Rock would be open game on that, so.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have a strong understanding of Somerset's goals and targets. It's something that we could definitely look into and provide you with more context on that.
Well, I would definitely recommend, if approved, that would be something that you look at where they land on a location and you land on a location, since you're both working with
Yes, ma'am.
SRC. I would hope that
Yes,
might be
ma'am.
looked at, because I don't know that Southwest Little Rock would have room for AMS, you all, and if for some reason Somerset tried to locate there. I think that could be a real enrollment challenge.
No, that's a great note. Thank you.
Any additional? Ms. Baldwin? Ms. Davis?
None from
No. Okay. I just have a few questions. It starts with a preface statement, and that is, we have a situation where there's a need here in Arkansas to serve community, and we're in hopes of vetting partners that have experience in similar community. engagements. Love your story in regards to your journey, in regards to Tennessee, and the fact that you have a track record. I understand Walls, Mississippi, just south of Memphis, so I certainly understand your journey there and can appreciate it. But it's a heavy lift, obviously, to your experience in high school. I appreciate your recognizing that getting an earlier start is better. So even here in the state of Arkansas, our early childhood, our effort to better understand how we can move the needle of academic outcomes early on is indeed a definitive plan of action. So just want to talk in general about your budget. And in particular, I appreciate, number one, your application. Very detailed. I absolutely love your timetable of recruiting. And so that's very robust. But there are also some questions in regards to the facility, acquiring a facility, managing a facility, and also being in a position to work relationships with partners within the area to provide you those necessary services is huge. Could you please share with me so I can better understand how those costs are represented in the budget? If not, what and when?
Yeah, absolutely. We've been very fortunate to have on our path people that understand the work we do and want to partner with us to help impact kids. We talked earlier, Larry Neal is on our board, and he works in commercial lending with Simmons Bank, who has a strong foothold here in Little Rock. And they are at the ready to help us in this acquisition process for a new facility within Southwest Little Rock. At the same time, we've had the opportunity to work with the APSRC and their resources that they have within Little Rock to build a plan towards being able to acquire and renovate that facility to appropriately meet our needs. What is incredibly important to us is the dollars that we receive to serve our students stay in our local communities. So when we search out in the city of Memphis, we did a fresh start build of a campus that went from a field and an old church to actively serving over 200 students within 4 months. Never want to do that again. What we learned is that you have to have people who understand the codes, who understand how the city works, who have resources right here in the city every day. And fortunately, with the partners that we have here, they're putting us on the right path to make sure that those resources are, unique and local here to Little Rock. Within the budget, you will see a financing plan allow us to finance that facility in relation to our phase-in grade level school model, so that as we phase in growth of the facility, we're phasing in cost so that that new revenue can cover those increasing facility costs.
Could you walk us through that part of the budget? I'd love to have you talk to us as we look at the numbers.
Oh, I don't have a
Financing
budget
plan.
on me. Wait 1 second, sir. And so I think you'll see that in debt expenditures, interest on loan and bond. In
What page would you be on?
this document that is on page, where are the pages here?
And by the way, just for clarification, there is a school that's K-5 and one that's 6-8. Is the request for one charter and 2 schools, or 2 charters?
2 charters.
2 separate charters?
Correct. Located on one campus, so we have efficiencies and economies of scale within that space.
So from our perspective, an LEA would be a district LEA for each.
Unless I'm misspeaking, I believe that's what the.
So we hope to be.
Oh, you have to come up here.
Jaquel Rogers, Executive Director. We're hoping to be co-located on one campus, but it would be an elementary and a middle school on one campus. So our understanding was to apply for, but it would essentially be a K-8, but it would be on one campus.
I appreciate that. The reason we're asking is because the panel would need to know if indeed, if granted two different charters, another word for charter is contract, so it's two separate contracts. And as you move forward, performance-based contracts. So just want to make sure that it was related to all of the aspects of one charter versus two.
Okay. But yes, it would be a K-8 on one campus. So we would essentially, go ahead.
So I'm sorry for the confusion on this interest in getting guidance from Tripp and Chad. Initially, we had applied for two separate contracts, two separate charters, a K-5 and a 6-8. Upon submitting that information, Dustin actually asked us to combine those into one application for one review. And so the ask was still for a K-5 and a 6-8, but to have those in one application. And I don't know if Dustin wants to provide more context, but we were asked to combine those two applications into one.
So essentially, the panel's decision is to make a decision on two separate contracts / charters.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That was the initial ask. And do we want to go back to the financial question? Sorry about that. It looks like it's on page 9 of the document I have. I think you might have a cover page, which would make it page 10. This would be the year 1 for the total budget expenditures. Under debt expenditures, you'll see interest on loan / bond. This is for the 6-8, and it's the year 1 cost for the phase 1 of that facility to suit 200 kids. And so what you'll see is that amortized over that 30-year period with a phase-in for the build capacity. So on year 1, we will not have the capacity to seat all 1,000. We will only build the capacities to seat the 400 we have. And then as we extend that building and that renovation of that space, the costs will escalate over time within the budget.
So this assumes that there's a building that you buy, that you renovate. Would it also be, I guess there's an option that if you don't find a building that exists to build, and I'm just wondering about the pricing of this. $3.2 million, it looks like, is what you're going to start with and amortize over 30 years. Talk to us about your financing, who it is or who it could be that you would work with, and then also about how you came up with the $3.2 million. So that seems kind of low, honestly, for the cost of construction right now. It's just
absolutely
expensive.
Yeah, you are absolutely correct. 3.2 for a ground-up build, especially in a 6-month timeline, is not feasible. This is with the eye that there are quite a few underutilized spaces in these communities. The current Meadow Cliff Elementary is one of them, and one we've reviewed and we have a strong interest in, that would be able to revitalize, to provide that high-quality learning environment that we need. At 3.2, I was able to build in, not apples to apples, right? But in that Bluff City High School build out, we built a building for 618 students with cafeteria and blah, blah, all the ancillaries for right over 7.1. And so, not saying that's where we want to be, but saying 3.2 for the first initial phase to be able to suit the needs of the first 400 kids is we believe, market within the area.
Do you have handy a price per square foot? And if you don't, that's okay. I'm just trying to.
I don't off the top of my head. I could get that to you. That's for about 30,000 square feet on that initial renovation phase. And once again, not a ground build. Absolutely can't do that. A price for a ground build.
I think that'd be good because 250 to 350 is not unheard of as far as
Absolutely.
construction costs right now.
Absolutely.
Per square foot.
Yes, sir.
Continuing on the budget, on the revenue side, I'm looking at 6A. Could you step us through a description of an explanation of each of the funding sources? If any of them, if not all, are conditional upon obviously approval, but those steps.
Yeah, and so let me say that I'm learning Arkansas, and so ask for a little grace in this. But from the partnership with the ESPRC, my understanding and how the budgets work within Arkansas, you have that foundation funding, which is an enrollment-based funding, benchmarked at the current rate, 7,182. For that, K-5 is the one I'm looking at, but K would also be 200 kids in year one. We've then applied what we see as the neighborhood demographics to that population to determine the subgroups within that population, both EL, special ed, and the funding that may be aligned to those subgroups. And so that's the rate you'll see applied to that EL funding subgroup. That professional development funding, we have not waived and have set aside the programmatics to be able to apply and secure that funding. And the same thing with the facilities funding and the enhanced funding. So we see those as, though we need to follow the proper steps, if the demographics match the expectation for the community-based funding for our students here in Arkansas. I think the one you're probably looking at is IOTA New School Opportunity Grant. And that is a grant that IOTA, the organization, will provide to ILA, because we know it's expensive to start a school, so that we can have a strong foundation here in Little Rock. So IOTA, the organization, is providing that funding directly.
And that's per campus, per school?
It varies. It's in year one funding only, because startup is very expensive if you have to purchase furniture and all of these items. It's year one funding only, and there is an amount both at the 6-8 level and amount at the K-5 level. By year two, that funding is no longer needed. And the net income positive maintains itself through the entirety of the projected budget.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Throughout your presentation, we've talked about community engagement. So do we have any established community partners, for example, that you're working with? If you could describe your plan of action relative to engaging families and engaging the community partners.
So we have a few community partners we've reached out to date. And so what we hope to do once approved is to really begin our, we have like a plan, a community engagement plan that we usually roll out when we enter into a community. And so we reach out to community leaders, to churches. We visit community centers, we connect with community leaders, and one of the things we really try to do is set up meetings within the community to hear what people in the community want. What would they like to see in the schools that come into the community, and how can we support and bring in services that are necessary to help build up the community and to bring more into the community. We are canvassers. We really believe in door knocking, as Chad said. That was when I became the director of community engagement with the organization, was one of the ways that I really built a very strong recruitment plan, was to really get out, door knock, talk to people, go to shopping centers, go to community centers, visit with people. We have a very aggressive marketing plan that we use in where we are currently, that we will do the same here, where we advertise and we invite people to events so they can come and learn about who we are and what we do as an organization. But we really believe that the opportunity is on the front end, not the back end, to really get people to know who you are, what you do, and how you plan to serve the community. So I think it is really important for us to spend the next 10 months getting to know Arkansas, getting to know the people here, and letting them get to know us. So we do have a robust marketing plan. We are on the ground people. We are a grassroots organization. We will get out and shake hands, kiss babies, spend that time on the weekends getting to know people here in Arkansas.
Chad, Chief Operations Officer. The one thing I would add to that, we talked about board member engagement, and that there was an individual done the work. So he is the owner, CEO, operator of Legendary Institute Barbershop on Bowman Road. And so has been doing their work, going into schools, giving the kids free haircuts every month. It is a known community partner that has engagement with some of those same families that we'll be engaging with and seeking to serve. And so the first sort of rollout or first step of our plan, if authorized or approved, would be to sit with him even more to learn more of the needs of the community, and then honestly to do things not around our space, yes, the community centers, but what is the space that families already know, and what is one that they've been coming to. And so it begins with the community centers that we did our community meetings in, but truly like that barbershop at the hub of that work, and really leveraging him not just as a board member, but again for the things that he's already done in this community and that families know. And I'd say like letting him lead the way, but trusting that you know these families, you know what they need, and they need a face that they trust, and they don't know us yet in that same way. And so knowing that we have to move in humility in that way, but to have someone who's already invested with those families.
Thank you very much. Just a couple more questions. The word charter typically implies innovation. And a lot of what you've shared was the traditional approach. Help us understand how, if granted the charter, you bring innovation to what you've applied to and spoke to as a traditional approach, but especially in an area that's needed.
Chad Everett, Chief Operations Officer. I guess I could have stayed up here. Saved a few steps, save y'all some time. I think when you talk about a traditional approach, I think what makes it innovative is actually following up and following through on those things. One of the things in the history of our organization that we've done well and that actually has led to those incremental changes and some of the larger growth that we've seen in chronic absenteeism and academic proficiency is a very personalized approach. We talk about case managed, but it's the executive director can walk into the school at any moment. You can stop them. So when we talk about innovation in the sense of bells, whistles, it's actually making sure that students have the materials they need to succeed, because so often people promise those things, but those things don't happen. They promise social work services, but they don't happen. The innovation is truly in that we're going to actually listen to you as an individual and be responsive to that. So yes, we talk about adding additional CTE programming and making sure that students, we have a partnership with Memphis Bells and have engaged with them, and what would it look like for them to come across the support with their aviation school and providing additional scholarships for students in Arkansas the same way that they have there, and transportation and those kinds of things. But it really, our innovation in what we do is that we follow through on what we say in serving children, and that if we say that you as an individual matter in what we're going to do, it's traditional, but Ms. Reed, a retired teacher who came back to us for a couple years, she would always say, look, kids are kids, and sometimes just if they know you love them, they'll perform for you and you can get what you need. That it's not always bells and whistles, but if a student walks in and says, you know, I want to drive trucks, I want to be a diesel mechanic. What's innovative is then we're responsible enough and have done this to then say the next week in our advisory program that you'll see later in the application, there may be an 18-wheeler near campus or there during lunches for you to actually go and engage with folks who've done that work. So our size and our approach, what makes it innovative is that we're super responsive to our families.
For middle school students.
For elementary, all right, so we go here. And if Chief Usher is here, she would speak to us, and we talk about K-1 innovation in the approach is actually doing the work to engage families so they know what to do with those students at home. So often families don't engage with schools, especially in the type of communities that we serve, because it's intimidating. When I send home that state test report, or when I start spinning all these acronyms that I don't understand what it means, you know, my baby needs help with phonemic awareness, what does that mean? Y'all gonna do that there? Well, we talk about in very concrete, succinct, clear ways. When your baby comes home at night, I need you to find 20 minutes to sit down and read with them. I don't need you to have a degree in English, and here are the questions that I need for you to ask. Who was in that store? What'd they do? And then if you really want to add something to, why do you think they did that? What in the text made you think that they did that for that reason? Well, the parent may not know all the subset of skills that now you are teaching or supporting your student with at home, but those are the things that then have that crossover to school, and where we have seen success in our individual experiences, because I spent a stint supporting the elementary school as well, not just secondary in Mississippi. Tell everybody kindergarten taught me a lot about leading, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for kindergarten teachers. But when you talk about innovation at that grade level, is how do you bring families in on literacy nights and those math nights, and really talk about how do you support numeracy and literacy at home through those activities or those things that you have at your disposal. How do you take those Skittles, or whatever, we hope something a little bit healthy, but how do you take those things, right, and use those to really engage with your child in a way that families can really own what they do?
Thank you, sir. I believe you hit the points I was going to ask next in regards to how to leverage your skill sets among your staff to work with those parents so they become co-equal partners in their child's education. From a district perspective, you're going to be encouraged to develop strategies designed to improve academic outcomes. So if you're doing K through 8, then working with not just the family members, but also with the community partners is going to be a huge aspect of those development of those strategies.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I have no further questions, unless there's some for the panel. Okay.
When you were asking and getting clarification about and now I'm like almost confused. So it's one application, but you're wanting 2 LEAs. Is that correct? Is that where we landed on? Okay. So does that mean that's like 2 charters then? Is that correct? Okay. But you're going to have one principal to.
No, there will be an elementary principal and a
Okay, because the way the budget reads in the application, it shows a 0.5 FTE for the principal and for the office staff, and it's divided for K5 and 6-8. So that's where I was getting some confusion because the budget made it appear that a principal would be divided.
Yes, ma'am. What you might be seeing is that it is a phase-in approach. Early on, when we have less kids in the building, some of those resources might be shared across the 2 schools. So our traditional model is to have about 500 kids with a principal, 2 APs, an instructional coach, a counselor, a social worker, a full-time nurse, and that will be the full build-out, which you could probably see respective in your model. But what you'll see in year 1 at 400 students is that there are some, for efficiency's sake, splits between the elementary and middle, because at that time you only have a K1 and a 6.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Shade Everett, Chief Operations Officer, and I think the other thing that, everything that Dan said is true, but also recognizing the importance in that phase roll-in of a member of our leadership team being present there to support, who understands the model and what we're trying to do. And so in that, you're not losing capacity in instructional oversight or support because you then would have a member of this team. And those are the conversations we've also had, and how do you continue to keep the work sustainable across all campuses.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm that in the end, once your growth model is out and what you project, there would be a building level administrator at each
Yes, ma'am.
building, just starting out that would be shared. Okay, thank you.
One more, I'm sorry. Just one final question. If for whatever reason, one of the schools is approved but not the other, are you all still prepared to move forward with the application? I knew the numbers guy would jump up on that one.
Our sustainability within Arkansas is very much dependent on reaching a critical mass for us to deploy our resources effectively. At a number that is projected to be much below that critical mass, it's going to be very hard for us to pick up our resources and stretch them across the river when really we need to duplicate them here in the state of Arkansas. And so while we would, as Jaquel said, look to move forward, long-term sustainability for us within, as any other organization within Arkansas, is going to depend on more than one school within Arkansas.
Let me drill down a little bit into that and put a finer point on my question. If you all got approved for a school with an understanding that based upon how things are going, you would then apply for expansion?
Absolutely.
After a certain number of years?
Absolutely. So that we could maintain those sustainable resources here in Arkansas.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank
We
you.
can't survive forever at that one
Yes.
school rate.
Thank you.
Just wondering, is there a future plan to take a dive into the high school world?
Jacquel Rogers, Executive Director. Our goal is to build a K-12 system. And so that was the attraction to Arkansas, was to build something that we had not had the opportunity to do as of yet in Tennessee, but to come into Arkansas, get the K-5 experience, have a touch point with children from the very beginning, and build that system into a K-12. And so that is what we would like to see moving forward.
Daniel Penneranda, CFO, and to provide a concrete timeline on that, by the time our 8th graders are ready to go to 9th grade, we would like to have a high school here to be able to serve them and other students of this community.
Thank you. Before going to, yes, Ms. Haywood.
Hi, Kaylee Haywood again, Department of Education attorney. I just wanted to kind of clarify with the one charter versus two. It's my understanding that their purpose, you know, when they initially start the charter next year, that they do plan on trying to get students in K through 1 the first year, as well as that 6th grade. Is that correct? Okay. And so they would need 2 separate schools, of course, to do that. They don't plan on having that as one school. And under our rules, you do have to have separate charters to have separate schools unless you come back at a later time to ask for that new license for a new school. So I think since they are wanting to start 2 schools at the same initiation, they will need 2 separate charters. They are also wanting to apply for hopefully some federal grant funds, which do require the 2 separate schools, which also requires the 2 separate charters. So that is just a clarification on that. It's similar to Somerset last month that had the 6 separate charters for the 6 separate schools for similar purposes. And I was just going to remind you as far as, you know, before you vote, because I know you guys had a lot of questions, and I know you are kind of would probably like, it sounds like, to maybe look at some more data, some more information. So, and if not, of course, that's up to you. You may have got what you needed today from the answering of questions, but I was just going to remind you, you do have the option to take this under advisement to another meeting next month, or even tomorrow if the applicant feels that they could get all the data to you in that amount of time, or if you feel like you could even look at it that quickly. So you could take it under advisement to another month, or you can even defer it until a month when the charter applicant feels that they have answered all your questions and have all the data ready to come back and present to you at a later time. And so I was just going to remind you all of that if that's an option you want to consider. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Just as a reminder to the panel, we've entertained a scenario before where an applicant was able to move forward without having established a location per se. But the biggie is our understanding of the financials to ensure that once it's finalized, we have a revised budget to make sure that all is well for student learning. So one of the things as it pertains to a revised budget, if you're looking at Title I, especially Title I Part A funding, one thing in engagement is that at each district, you're going to have a responsibility to have an engagement coordinator. Every school will have an engagement facilitator, and that facilitator should be paid extra over and beyond their normal pay. So I'm not sure if that's baked into your budget or not, but it should be for compliance purposes. I have no further questions, so at this time, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the charter application for Iota Leadership Academy K through 5.
Second.
It's been moved by Dr. Moore and seconded by Ms. Newton to approve the K-5 Academy.
May I include the stipulation with that you mentioned, or is that added later? Sorry, I don't know the legal proceeding. Contingent upon a revised budget approved upon location determination? Can that be included?
That's
in
fair.
that? Okay, thank you.
I'll second that also.
Okay. It was, the motion was by Dr. Moore and seconded by Ms. Newton to approve the K-5 charter request with stipulation that a revised budget will be provided to us. All those in favor, vote aye.
Well, I think,
Yes, let's have discussion.
Yeah.
And discussion on it? Okay, let's make sure we're clear on it.
Yeah, so is the intent then to come back and approve or vote on the 6 through 8, or are you limiting this to just the K through 5?
My understanding is that it needed to be 2 separate votes.
Correct.
So I was only suggesting one for now.
Okay, but the second vote would come. You're not limiting.
Absolutely not
That was
limited,
my question.
yes.
You're not limiting. Okay.
All right.
no question.
Very good. So all those in favor of that motion to approve, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Motion passes. We have another charter request.
I think we need to.
Oh, voting sheets?
Fill out
Okay.
They make us write all this down in voting sheets.
Well, I've read mine before and I
Oh,
could,
you already did?
yeah, I've written something. If I could read it, or do I have to put it in voting sheet? Read. Not yet. I mean, when I get to it, I just don't want to type it all.
All's well? Good. Mr. Davis?
Sure, I voted for the motion due to a high degree of community engagement, support services for family, and a desire to build a K-12 system for families in Central Arkansas.
Thank you. Dr. Moore?
I vote to approve the charter request and accompanying waivers for the Iota Leadership Academy K-5, given the mission and demonstrated evidence of incremental outcomes, both qualitative and quantitative, in their previous locations. I find their approach to reach underserved and under-resourced communities could benefit the students and families in Southwest Little Rock.
Ms. Newton?
I voted for the motion. The applicant presents a comprehensive plan to address academic deficits of the proposed population to be served. They also demonstrate knowledge and experience both that will ultimately move the students and communities forward.
I support the request to establish a K-5 charter school in Little Rock by the Iota Leadership Academy. The educational model and learnings from operating high-quality education in Memphis area. Disadvantaged communities will provide opportunities for similar families in disadvantaged communities in Little Rock.
Thank you. I voted for the motion to approve the request to open the Iota Leadership Academy K-5 campus with an initial launch school year 2025-2026 because of the expressed interest and demonstrated track record and capacity to serve the state of Arkansas in a community in need of exceptional resources to improve academic outcomes. Of interest is for CAP to monitor decisions on facility details and a revised budget to ensure compliance in all areas. Congratulations. We'll now entertain a motion for the request for the 6 through 8 campus.
I move to approve the Iota Leadership Academy request for a 6-8 charter school, given the stipulation that they will bring us a budget amended based upon their site location.
Second.
It's motioned by Dr. Moore and seconded by Ms. Newton to approve the request for K-6. Any questions? If not, all those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay.
Nay.
Any abstentions? All right, we have an approval based upon our count. We have one nay vote. So, voting sheets. Ready? Dr. Moore?
Basically ditto to my last one, but I vote to approve the charter request and accompanying waivers for the Iota Leadership Academy 6-8, given the mission and demonstrated evidence of incremental outcomes, both qualitative and quantitative, in their previous locations. I find their approach to reach underserved and under-resourced communities could benefit the students and families in Southwest Little Rock.
Mine is the same. Also, this applicant presents a comprehensive plan to address academic deficits of the proposed population. They also demonstrate knowledge and experience that will ultimately move both students and communities forward.
I voted to support the establishment of an Iota Leadership Academy Charter School for grades 6 through 8 in Little Rock. The experience of educating disadvantaged communities in Memphis will be beneficial to similar communities in Little Rock.
Mr. Davis.
I vote against the amendment due to concerns regarding oversaturation of charter schools regarding the targeted community and additional information needed that would provide clarity to some results mentioned in the annual Achievement School District Report.
And similarly to the earlier vote, I voted for the motion to approve the request to open Iota Leadership Academy grades 6 through 8 with an initial launch school year 2025 to 2026 for 6th grade because of the expressed interest and demonstrated track record and capacity to serve the state of Arkansas in a community in need of exceptional resources to improve academic outcomes. Of interest for CAP is to monitor decisions on facility details and a revised budget to ensure compliance in all areas. Congratulations.
Congrats.
For the record, we do have that stipulation to receive revised budget and your plans as you center in and nail down your facility, and we'll have a definitive answer on when that can be provided to us. Any additional business, new business? If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move we adjourn.
Motion by Mr. Baldwin, second by Ms. Newton to adjourn. Thank you.